All right, folks, saddle up. This week's chat was a really fun one. We had a huge guest. Jeremy Jones was in studio, and we had a great chat. He goes by Jeremy Jones. Some may know him as Big Mountain Jeremy Jones. I like to call him BMJJ personally. And he is one of the greatest big mountain free riders of all time. He's ridden some of the most high consequence, no fall zone, spicy terrain of anyone that has ever walked this planet. And he's truly paved the way for our sport. He's been here since the beginning, basically since the advent of snowboarding. Jeremy's been there all the way to where we are now. So he has so many great stories along the way in this podcast. He's also an entrepreneur. He founded Jones Snowboards. He's also the founder of Protect Our Winters, advocating for climate change. He's an author. He's a splitboarder. And when it comes to video parts, I don't know if anyone can even come close. Between all the segments and different videos, we tried to count, but it's somewhere between 50 and 100 video segments. He's also a family man. And he's also just a Sherpa of our sport, of our lifestyle, of our culture, this thing we call snowboarding. I think you guys are going to love the chat. Lastly, before we get into it, if you like the show and you see something you like, share it on Instagram. That helps us out a ton. As well as if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And then that goes for YouTube as well. So I'll shut up and let's just get into this fantastic chat that we had with Jeremy Jones. Here we go.
You are listening to the
Hey, MFM. See you on the lift. Back attack, dude.
Bon voyage!
Hey, yo, homies, good.
Slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
All right, we got a huge day in the booth here at the Bomb Hole, which is presented by Run Through a Wall Smelling Salts. Today, co-hosting, we got Mr. Griffin Siebert in studio. What's happening, Griff?
What's going on, Grandies? I'm excited to be here.
Glad that you're here. For the listeners that don't know, Griff is a pro snowboarder as well as a designer, graphic designer over at Nitro Snowboards, and avid eater of granola and man of the mountains. And then we got Silk D over here on production. What's happening, Silk?
Doing great. Not much granola over here. So we're doing good.
and we got Jeremy Jones in studio today. What is happening, Jeremy?
Just happy to be here. I feel like I'm in a snowboard museum and just really feeling the sideways love here.
Love that. Love hearing that. But let's just get right into it, Jeremy. Massachusetts. Grew up in Massachusetts. Not everybody knows that. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, so come from a huge family back in Mass and still there. I mean, basically, I come from about I've almost 100 immediate relatives back east, and my brothers and myself and one or two more are really the only ones to leave the basic general vicinity of Cape Cod, and the roots run thick in Mass.
Love hearing that. Yeah, that's, being from Mass, I love talking about the fact that you're from Mass. But when we were talking on the phone the other day, you brought up a really interesting point, and you mentioned that you were born in a time period that was basically perfect to be a snowboarder. And I'd love to hear you elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I think, what's the ultimate time to be born as a snowboarder? And the fact that I got to be around, I was really fell in love with skateboarding at a young age and was going to the mountains and skiing, but really had this dream of sliding sideways down the mountain and started seeing snowboarding in the skate mags in the back. There'd be little photos. And so to be able to, I think I was 12 when I walked into the basement of Shaw's General Store, and there were 4 Burton backhills there. They were the first boards that were sold in Stowe, Vermont. And so to be able to experience and mind you, this was early 80s, so absolutely snowboarding, was going on out here in the late 70s and what have you. But as far as in that area, those were the first boards for retail. And then to have that backyard culture and then showing up the first day when it's allowed on the resort and seeing that transition right in front of our eyes, dealing with the skiers, yelling at us or what have you. And then really the birth of pro snowboarding and seeing that massive boom and how fast things were changing. You'd show up at a half pipe contest and the level of snowboarding would be here on Friday afternoon, and by Sunday it was here. And one example of that, I remember the Stowe Muffin Cup. It was, I don't know if it was the first half pipe contest in on the East Coast, but certainly one of them. And this kid, this kid from Vermont shows up in a flannel shirt, super quiet, and is boosting. I saw the first J-tear there, first time someone ever gone upside down that I'd seen. That kid instantly learns it. He leaves on Sunday with a Burton sponsorship, and within a year, he is an international superstar known as Jeff Brushy.
Damn.
So things like that, and then, onward from there.
J-tear air, what is that? A crippler?
Yeah, where you actually put your hands down. It's like do you know the exact?
It's kind of like a backflip where you put your hands down type of thing.
Yeah, and it was, at that point, nobody was going inverted in a half pipe. So it was like the halfway point to a crippler.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. And then so on and so forth, and then splitboarding and all these things. But it is crazy. You've lived through essentially the lifetime of snowboarding's existence because it's not that old. All right, huge announcement coming at you from the bomb hole. We are back to weekly episodes. Thank you for your patience. We're going to keep them rolling every Wednesday for the rest of the winter through spring. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And we got some heaters coming down the pipeline. If you're a Patreon member, you already know that. But we got some heaters coming down the pipeline. Also, we got a special offer on our website. If you spend over $50, you get a free pair of socks, and your hoofs are going to be feeling great in these things. That also works out well because we have a new fall drop with some heat, literal heat. We have the Fuego sweatpants, which turned out great fit, baggy fit. We got the Fuego long sleeve to match. If you're really feeling yourself, you get the whole kit. We got the Fuego embroidery hoodie, and we got the hoodie I'm wearing right now, the ring hoodie. So a bunch of new gear at bombhole.com. Be sure to check it out. If you spend over $100, you get free shipping. It's just a great way to support the show. So we're really excited about our new merch. We think it looks good. So check it out, bombhole.com, where you can also see we upload all the new videos that come out. Everything that we see on the internet that we like, we put on bombhole.com. So be sure to bookmark it as one of those pages. Come on over and visit us. Come on over to bombhole.com. And with that being said, let's get back to the show. Let's get back to the banter. Now, going back to the early days being on the East Coast, where did you sharpen your teeth, and how did you make your way from getting the Burton backhill to becoming sponsored, and what did snowboarding look like back then?
Yeah, so once it was allowed on the mountain, it was like if that lift was spinning, I was on it. Total weekend warrior, driving 5 hours. At that point, I was really, we grew up as a hockey family. We had like our basement was lined with hockey lines and nets. And it was hockey. And once snowboarding was allowed, hockey went out the window. And on the mountain all the time, went to that first contest. I was 13, I think, at the time. Got third. The next year, I go to, now they have this New England Cup series, which was an incredible contest series. And it's, wow, because I look back today. Back then, you had your multiple age divisions. The junior age division had 80 kids in it. We had a pro division, which Richards and Jason Ford and Noah Brandon, all these kind of first-gen pros came up through. Trevor Graves was there on the side of the half pipe shooting photos. But anyways, I show up to that contest. I'm on a beat-up board. Rosignol had, they had just gotten their first snowboards in the country the night before. It was at Sugarbush, so their office at that point was just down the road. This guy rolls out with a demo. I'm like, hey, can I demo a board? That's in way better shape than mine. Demoed the board, won the race, came back, told the guy. He runs to the payphone, calls Rosignol and says, this kid just won this race. And he's like, you can keep the board. And that was the start of a 19-year run with Rosignol. From there, I was super fortunate to go to Carabassa Valley Academy. My dad was really close with Warren Cook, who ran Sugarloaf Mountain. His kid, same age, and I was really struggling in school, and school was not my thing. And my dad was cool about it. He let me go for the winter term, and he's like, he saw a passion in me, and then I showed up to Sugarloaf, and the snowboard program had just started, and that meant Mark Fawcett. He had just graduated high school. He was in New Brunswick, Canada, and he was trying to be a pro, and he would ride at Sugarloaf and would see all the CVA and all the ski racers, and was like, I want to train there. He convinced them to allow him to go there and just train. So it was Fawcett and I, and then that started the New England Cup Series, and then, we both had incredible success right out of the gate. It was, at one point, I think I won 35 races in a row. Back then, it was all about overall wins. So I could kind of hang in the top 5, top 3 in halfpipe, and that's where things heated up fast. By 16, I went to Snow Summit for my first pro contest, and ended up third on that, and then just won $900 and stayed on the road as long as I could with that, and we definitely mastered the art of dirt bagging, along with the rest of the snowboard industry, though. We were all, back then we made a point to always show up on Friday afternoon to help dig the pipe and ride the pipe, and that's where we would find the place to stay that night. And not once, competing every weekend, did we ever have to stay in a hotel, nor in a car. Once we went west, we were living in cars.
I love that.
That's insane. Are we rocking hard boots at this point in time?
Hard boots and soft boots, yeah.
So you do soft boots for half pipe, hard
Yep.
boots for racing?
Yeah.
We talking leotard?
Yeah, that came, once race and professional, then the leotard came out.
That seems so cold.
Especially at Sugarloaf, they're really cold.
Now, I talked to Travis Rice this morning, and he was talking about, he's like, one thing when you're talking to Jeremy, he's like, doesn't get brought up much, but the Rosignol team at one point, it really never gets brought up, but it was a powerhouse, like with Travis and yourself, and was it
John Jackson, too.
Yeah. Alex Ochu, maybe.
Todd Richards.
Richards, yep.
And then a bunch of Jonas Emery, Paavo Tinkkanen, Eero Niemela. Did I get the right name? Yeah. It was incredibly stacked. JF Pelchat. And that was an incredible era. And I also think about look, I'm like 148 years old in pro snowboard years, and somehow still get to call myself a pro snowboarder. But the role of team managers, we've all had those. They have so much power, but they really, dictate someone's career. So. And so influential, and I have so many team managers to thank. But definitely Christine McConnell was a massive, just fought hard for me, and kept me, allowed to be a pro snowboarder, and so it was an incredible era, and then I really learned about product development through Rosignol, which is a wild thing, especially working with the French that are, they had this 100+ years of experience of developing product, but very stuck in their ways, and then learning the art of like finessing new concepts with them to get your outcome.
So we just talked about a bunch of contest stuff growing up, racing, doing half pipe contests. At what point did you get the Freeride Bug?
Well, the Freeride Bug was always there at Stowe. I mean, there's all these misty little runs in the woods that we were always looking for, and just the thought. We started seeing Powder Magazine and the early snowboard mags, and that was the ultimate. And my brothers, I'm the youngest of two older brothers, Todd and Steve. My brother Steve took a year off from college, moved to Colorado. He was in Telluride for like a month. And then I remember I talked to him on a payphone. I remember talking to him on a payphone. I'm like, how's it going? He's good. I'm in Wyoming. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing in Wyoming? He said, I'm at this place called Jackson Hole. And I'm like, what happened to Colorado? And he's like, yeah, that wasn't for me. And so before I went to my first pro contest, I went and visited him in Jackson Hole, and that really rocked my world in the sense of I left there. Instead of wanting to be a pro snowboarder and be world champ, I'm like, I want to be a dishwasher and just ride Jackson Hole every day. And in some sense, I think that helped me mentally, as I always knew there was this other path, which is like work at night, ride every day, which my brothers made it look really fun. So I didn't have the weight of like do or die with the competing.
And that was your first time out west, not a contest.
Well, I actually went out west to the U.S. Nationals to Mount Hood, and it was cool because I actually was just there with my son and nephew sitting at Huckleberry Inn. Looks exactly the same. The menu's the same. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, I was here 30 plus years ago. And I remember I was winning everything back east. Rocket Reeves was winning everything out west, and we clashed, and I beat him by 100th of a second in the GS to win my first national title.
Damn.
Leotard came through.
The leotard came through. Rocket had one too. Wish we had that photo.
Yours was a little tighter.
Yeah.
That's clutch. So you just mentioned your brothers, and they ski, correct?
Yep.
So it seems like you know, a lot of snowboarders are in their bubble where like we just ride with snowboarders, but it seems like you grew up or you were always around skiers and you guys had similar just bagging peaks kind of mentality, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I learned early on to pick my riding partners by their attitude and not what's on their feet. And so, yeah, I'm looking for like-minded people out there with, that have the skills to, I think early on we also realized the importance of being educated in the mountains was how you really live a long life doing it. We were absolutely the classic loose cannons that had close calls, and then so I mean my snowboard life is so much based off of mentors, and I'm always looking at people further down the road than me to learn from. Now that I am far down that road, I make a point also to be riding with younger people and learning from them and getting that energy.
We actually have a guest question from Nick Russell about exactly what you're talking about right here. So here we go.
Doctor, can you speak to the idea of mentorship in the mountains and why it is so important? I feel that you have really helped elevate the careers and overall snowboarding experience of so many people over the years, but most importantly, you've helped share that knowledge that you've learned along the way. So I was curious, who were some of your early mentors when you were diving headfirst into free riding? And secondly, is this something that you are actively thinking about when you're bringing rookies out into the field? Or is it sort of just subconscious by now? You just naturally share what you've learned. Appreciate all you do. Thanks, brother. Oh,
yeah, Nick. Good one of my favorite riding partners. I know you've spent a lot of time with him.
He's unreal. I feel like he's the birth of your riding.
Junior Bacon, BMJJ.
Oh yeah. You've led the path for Nick, I feel like.
Well, I mean, that's the exciting thing about what I would call informal mentorship is, bringing Nick along, and then now I'm learning from Nick, which is awesome. He's carrying the heavy backpack now, which is nice. But, it's experience is something you get just after you need it. And the trick is to become experienced without getting killed. And I've thankfully am quite experienced, and yes, mentors have played a huge role for me, and just really almost to a guilty level of feel like I'm drafting a lot, really looking at the people further down the path and just studying them. And early on back east, it was Mark Fawcett, Jason Ford, people like that. And then in the mountains, my brothers, absolutely, so much has come from them. But Doug Coombs was our mega guru in the mountains. And he just had this incredible skill, but a feel for the mountains and a touch. And there's the textbook side of the mountains, which is really important. And then there's just this broader, listen to your gut, get in tune with the mountains, feel out the mountains, and then these really things like terrain progression, which is such a huge part of my approach to the mountains, which means you start out on small, simple stuff with low consequence, and then you just slowly work your way up into bigger things. When it snows or the wind comes up or something changes, you go back to the beginning, and then another big fundamental is clean terrain. So always asking, what happens if this thing slides? And ideally you're at a spot that isn't, we all die. And so those are just things that really come from Doug. And then, there's a litany of other people along that path too.
Mind you, too, this was a time where I feel like snowboarding was more in its like freestyle growth. Yep. And I feel like you were going on the more free ride, which was like unknown. And was there any other like snowboard mentors? Because I feel like at this point it was mostly skiers that were in that realm.
Yeah, I mean, no question. Tom Burt, Andy Hetzel. I started filming with Standard Films. And so Andy Hetzel, first film trip I did with them was, Andy was on that. And then super fortunate to spend a lot of time with Tom, and then Jim Zellers as well, who continues to be my, he's probably my biggest mentor in the mountains and is still to this day.
True legend.
Now, you mentioned filming with Standard Films. We have a guest question from Mike Hatchett, founder of Standard Films. Here we go.
Hey, Jeremy. Mike Hatchett here. Can you tell us what it was like to be one of the first peoples to explore Haines on a snowboard? I know you rode there a lot with Johan in the early days, and you guys opened up a lot of the terrain along with some really well-known skiers. And can you just tell us what it was like exploring Haines and being one of the first people to lay down some turns on the blank canvas? This is such an epic area. So I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, Hatchet Brothers have also, they've been a massive part of my life and mentorship, and also along those same lines of like, let's make sure everyone gets home safe today. And an example of that is you'd go out with those guys and a rider would be like, I want to hit this road gap or hit this line, and Mike's there going, dude, you came up short on 3 out of the 5 last things you've hit. You come up short here, you're dead. Or like you had to convince them that you weren't going to get broken off for them to point the camera at them, and that is a really important thing. I mean, you guys have all been there. On the flip side, you have someone going, hey man, that would be cool if you did that, it would be sick. And I've seen that go down and then have people get broken off. and been really pissed about it because the rider was hemming and hawing. And what I say, you know, your last line of defense is, and first line is listen to your gut. And so anyways, I really appreciate my time with them. Have you guys had that with?
Oh yeah. It's the worst when you see a filmer saying, hey, I think you should hit this. And the rider's like, I don't know, you know, and you're just like, man, you shouldn't be telling that kid to do that.
It's not your body that's getting in danger. You're pushing the button.
So the hatchets are the opposite of that. But I was super fortunate to again, like come in at a perfect time when I was 19, just graduated high school. My brothers were again called and said, hey, sell everything, bring a bunch of Cliff Bars. We got room in our tent on Thompson Pass. You got to get up here. And I went up there with $1,200 and spent, 99% of that on plane drops and heli drops. And so I got this real, and it was another one of those examples that it would clear, and the sport was, sunny day would come, and the sport was at one level in the morning, and by the afternoon it was at a totally different level. And so I was a young kid at that time, just following, but got to experience that. Valdez started, we started finding the boundaries of, you can't go there. And to me, at the heart of my big mountain snowboarding and snowboarding in general is to always be finding new lines, these new dream lines. And if I find myself on the best day of the year at a line that I've already ridden, then I'm not evolving. And so that led my brothers and I to Haines, Alaska. And I went there with Johan we started out in Skagway a year before, had the worst trip ever. But at the end of that trip, we took a plane drop to Haines and was like, wow, that place is incredible. And we were really getting into spines at that point, and spines were everywhere. And yeah, we had one year there where conditions were perfect. It crescendoed on a final day where we were with two other skiers that had been hurt. So it was just Johan and I. We had this 9-run day where we just made our way through spine wall to spine wall, started in the morning, ended in the evening. And the snowboarding that Johan was doing on that day is hands down the best snowboarding I've ever seen in my life. I was hanging on by a thread. And yeah, that was really special.
My Name is Jonas part, where it's like the intro to that movie, and he's going like straight down everything.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, but it's where he is just mobbing massive spine walls, and yeah, he was a wild guy to ride with because we would never know what he was going to do. And you're lucky if you got an arm wave when he'd drop in. So it was like the cameraman just like, he's moving. Okay, here he goes. He didn't even try to ask what he was going to do.
And then for the layman terms, like for just explaining like the tenure of the heli-op, because there's certain places where they can't, I don't know this, but from my knowledge, you can't fly past a certain ridge, right? Like you're not allowed to ride that.
Yeah, so there are certain areas you can take a helicopter and certain areas you can't. And that's what really led me to this foot-powered approach, is because I realized that it's the same with snowmobile, exactly the same. And so as someone who likes to always be finding new dream lines, the reality is that you can only, with a machine, you can access about 5% of the mountains in the U.S. In Alaska, lower 48, Canada's pretty similar. So I realized, at some point where I'm like, man, if I can figure out how to live out there in a tent and hike these things, I now have a never-ending supply of new terrain.
I love that. Before we tee up splitboarding, because I do want to sink our teeth into that, I'm just so curious when it comes to riding these lines, these spine lines that are just straight down, spicy, steep terrain. As somebody watching it, I'm watching you go down this, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Literally, like, I've been snowboarding my whole life. And so, it seems insane to us, but how do you get yourself prepared to ride the spicy stuff? Like, how do you get your mind right?
Well, it's about putting in the time. And I always made a point to have about 80 days a year before I ever got in front of a camera, ride a lot of less than optimal days. I'm out there when it rains and then it turns to bulletproof ice going, this is an incredible opportunity. This is the firmest our mountain's been in so long. And what a great time to really get in touch with our edges. And so putting in the mileage, and I always looked at, as I'm sure you guys, if I'm getting in front of a camera, I looked at that like a contest day. There's money that's going into, especially when we were shooting film. The cameramen love to snowboard. They would love to be out snowboarding. They've chosen to point a camera at me. I better be bringing it or I'm taking up space. And so just putting in the time.
Riding a lot. Get the reps up.
You still seem like you do that. Just following you on Instagram, it's like you're always riding Palisades, it seems like.
Yeah, I'm definitely in that 150 plus days a year type thing. And the beauty with splitboarding is I'll go out and do a bunch of splitboarding and be beat down. And then I'm like, well, fuck, it sure sounds nice to have no backpack and hop on a lift and just go get some easy vert. Then the flip side of that is maybe where I'll be riding a resort a bunch and then go and kind of be beat up from that and then go, oh, it'd be real nice just to go walk in the woods and take a pow lap. Yeah.
That's incredible. Another topic that came up when I was talking to Nick Russell, he was mentioning that basically he said, you are more experienced than anyone and you're in a leadership role a lot of times in the mountains, but there is no sense of ego. Like everyone that's in the mountains is equal and everybody has a voice. And I'd love to hear you elaborate on that.
Well, that's kind words. Ego is the most dangerous thing in the mountains. Ego is not your amigo, is the saying we have. And my mistakes, the cut on my cheek, that's ego-based. So I'm really attuned if I see it in someone in the mountains, it's like, oh, that ego's flaring up and just run from it. But the reality is we do our AVI classes and all that, but we are in many ways, it's witchcraft out there. As much as I wish it wasn't. It's fucking witchcraft.
Good way to put it.
And so your spidey senses better be turned on, and we want everyone's spidey senses turned on. We want everyone to be going, hey, I don't know. I hear you talk about cornices, and there's a big one right there, or whatever it might be. So, it's a group effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking on that, Hatchet mentioned when you were filming for Paradox, you do that toe side line in Tahoe. That's your ender. I can't remember the name of it. Grizzly Spines. And he said that you called off prior, right? I'd love to hear you talk about that story.
Yeah, so I was, we were all, and to ride that line meant it was at sunrise. So, we've all been there. It's like meet at the trailhead at 4 a.m. or something ridiculous. And I get up there and it's this kind of, it's a spine above this big cliff that I don't think would kill you, but could definitely break you off if you fell off of it. And I was getting ready, some clouds came in and we waited like 20 minutes for them to pass. And then I could feel the snow got a little bit dense, and I was worried about that density pulling me off the wall on that and pushing me off this cliff. And it's a hard call, but when it comes from, it's all about your crew in that sense where everyone's ready. We're like, 30-second countdown, getting ready for the 3, 2, 1 and go. It's probably the latest I've ever called off a line. We were inside the 10-second count, and I'm like, no. And then why the hatchets are so awesome is, the radio call instantly comes over. Good call, dude. Totally agree. Let's get out of here. Yeah, and then we go and ride Mellow Pow, and it's like, it's one line, man. Like who cares? And we ended up getting a refresh, the perfect refresh. We got there super early and rode it 4 days later and nailed the line.
That much more special too.
Yeah, like. That's the spidey senses tingling and listening to it as you described.
Yeah, and that's along the lines of what I say. If it's not a screaming yes, it's a no. And when it's high consequence stuff, it has to be a screaming yes.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break and talk to you guys about Pub Beer. They are back as a sponsor. They're the official beer of Cheap Fun and also the official beer of The Bomb Hole. So if you're looking to have a good time with your friends, delete a few cans responsibly, I should say. Have one after work or maybe 14. Wake up in a bush covered in urine. Don't know your own name. Responsibly, I should say, for legal purposes. Choose Pub Beer. You won't regret it. Let's talk about bindings. Let's talk about Union Binding Co. I personally think they make the best bindings on the market. I'm biased, but I think that would be the general consensus amongst most snowboarders. We're talking buttery smooth ratchets. We're talking lots of adjustability. But most importantly, I love the clean look. Draplin did the logo years ago, and it is strong. I run the white Union Force Classics on some black pants. I think it just looks timeless personally. But you can't go wrong with any binding in the line. They have a stacked team of riders. We're talking Travis Rice. We're talking Arthur Longo, Kazuhiro Kahubo, Austin Viz, Jess Kimura. The list goes on of just very talented snowboarders. And it's a company that's owned by snowboarders. It's snowboarders that care about this lifestyle we call snowboarding, and they invest in it, and they make great products. So if you're interested in getting yourself a pair of bindings, check out unionbindingcompany.com. Check out their whole line. You won't be disappointed. I love the graph in that. If anyone hasn't read your book, The Art of Shralpinism, it was so hard to break down this show because there's so many things I want to talk about in there, and there's so many great little nuggets of information if you're a person of the mountains and you navigate in the winter and want to learn from Jeremy's experiences. But I love the graph that you have describing like your confidence and then the risk, and then you lose a friend. And I'd love to hear you talk about that graph.
Yeah. Do you know the classic Abbey graph? So you get... you come into the backcountry, you get your beacon, do all that, and you start nailing it, and you get this confidence, and then the mountains betray you, and then you go down, and then you start taking classes, and you
elaborate on the mountains betraying you, like an avalanche.
Mountains betraying you is when they do something you didn't think they were going to do,
okay.
And so you have a really close call. So you kind of start up here, you go up to here. And then you have that bad call, and then you go down, and then you start taking classes, and you start climbing back up. You never get back up to here, but you start climbing back up, and then and it's maybe it's been 8 years since you had another call, and so you're feeling pretty good. And then they betray you again, and then you go down. And so, anyways, the dips get lower. Your high points get lower and lower the longer you've been in the mountains.
Ignorance peak.
Yeah,
it is ignorance peak, 100%.
Slowly, more knowledge, the smaller.
And also, the thing it mentioned, like losing a friend in the mountains, being around.
Yeah, losing mentors, losing friends, getting hurt, what have you, where you just get brought down to zero. And we, my brothers and I would call that 24-year-old disease, which is where on, say, the kid that graduates high school and goes all in on skiing or snowboarding, by the time they're 24, they're Superman. And that's the most dangerous time. And I remember when I turned 24, my brother looked at me and said, make it to 25, dude. This is the gnarliest year.
Yeah, full of piss and vinegar.
Snowboarding's 27. What's the rock stars when they die or whatever?
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. I have a nerd question, speaking of risk. Is more your line riding. I remember this clip of you riding this psycho line, and you started drifting towards a rock. You might remember this, and you straight wally the rock, but then grease it.
Yep, I know the line you're talking about.
And I'm just curious if this is year 24.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely get into I don't put it. My son, well, my kids haven't seen any of the video parts, but I'm certainly keeping them away from the 24 zone.
Rated R.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, we got a long question from none other than Travis Rice. Here we go. Saddle up.
Jeremy, Travis Rice here. I am thrilled to hear you're headed into the booth. This is long overdue. And I wanted to have you extrapolate a bit on a subject that has been, I would say, taking up quite a bit of my mental bandwidth these past few years. And in around, taking risks with a family, and especially responsibility of having children. I think back to our first trip up outside of Haines for Deeper, and our long, month-long trip together out in the remote wilderness hiking. And man, the exposure that comes with foot-powered big mountain riding. And I specifically remember a day that waiting for snow for so long, finally came, and we were out, and conditions were really favorable. But I remember you heading off on a solo trek for an evening line, and I remember sitting on a ridge opposing where you were headed up, and watching you, essentially swim up. I would call it 55, 60 degree face, waist deep, with some glacier holes, exposure underneath you. And the constant fine line that comes with trying to be progressive in the backcountry, and also, doing it in a responsible way, as you now have dependents to consider. I just love to hear your thought process as someone who's, I'm sure, spent the last decade plus trying to grapple with what's justifiable. Really look forward to it. Appreciate your time.
All right. Yeah, Rice. So a little context to that time. That was the first foot-powered Alaska trip that I did. And my whole life, my snowboarding has been based around Alaska. And that was a really heavy time. As we were trying to get into the mountains, Shane McConkey passed away, who his wife and my wife are best friends. Our daughters at that point were, I don't even think they were a year old. Sherry had kind of posted up at our house at that point. So I'm in I instantly fly home, and I'm spending all this time at my house. Basically, this wake is at my house, and I have to leave to go shoot my first foot-powered movie that was, at that point, somewhat self-funded. We were in year one of this 2-year project because we didn't have enough money to make it in 1 year. But I remember leaving home and driving to the airport just in tears, like, what the fuck am I doing? And the reality is that is a good way to go into the mountains. Like, I crawled into the mountains, and I was afraid to walk from my tent to the cook tent. The boogeyman was everywhere. And, you just slowly work your way up. I know exactly what Travis, the line Travis is talking about. I felt really, obviously it's like you're staking your life on your decisions on that. It was, it wouldn't have been a great place to fall or get in an avalanche, but I was on a spine. That's why we love, a lot of the stuff that you see us do is very rare. Is it these huge, wide open, big convex rolls? Because that's if something slides, there's nowhere to hide. But absolutely spaceman on a tether in that moment. But yeah, just chipped my way into it. And just some context on that trip. Travis had just shot That's It, That's All. And we all saw that like massive explosion that came with that. And for him to come on that trip, he's like, yeah, I'll come. I think I can only come for 10 days. And he ended up putting 25 days out there. The longest anyone has ever been in a friggin' on a trip. Yeah, and he was just so at home. And we went out there because we thought at that point we'd never done it. And we're like, oh, we'll go here and we'll ride that line. And then we'll get picked up by the plane and we'll go over here and ride this other one. So we literally went out there with 2 pairs of socks. Travis and I shared this 2-man tent. And I remember at one point it was like day 17 and he looks at me and goes, oh, I think I've reached my new camping limit. And I'm like, you've spent 17 days in a tent? He's like, oh yeah, hunting all the time. So yeah, Travis is a foot-powered beast, and that was like the happiest and most at peace that I've ever seen him in the mountains. And yeah, the kid stuff is really, really hard, and it's why we continue to refresh every year on our Abbey stuff. And I do make a point of keeping track when I have turned around. If I haven't turned around in a while, it's like you got to flex that muscle. It's turn around. But at that moment, for sure, I thought it was the end of my snowboard career. My friends flying out on that trip were staying at the same hotel that I had stayed in for 10 years. I'm with TGRs there, all the cameramen, the photographers, the riders that I just couldn't have been in a more dialed scene in my snowboarding at that time. Sponsors were happy, and I'm like, fuck that, I'm going foot powered. And I remember Hatchet, God bless him, he's like, how's the hippie snowboard film going? And everybody, I remember this one line, we rode this Laddie's Cove in Tahoe, for example, which is this in deeper, it's the crescendo of that part of the film, and it's the whole face closed out with a cliff, and we called it Hippie Cove in honor of Hatchet. So anyways, we're really struggling. We wake up, sunny day, and we're like, okay, all systems go. And I'm flying out in the plane through the heli zone, and it's this long valley, and I pass Absent Films. I pass TGR. They're on their 3rd run of the day. In my head, I'm playing the day, what I would have done. I'm just looking at track. I mean, they've shot a third of their Alaska segment in that morning, and I'm like, who knows when we're gonna make a turn? And all this anxiety, and we passed the heli boundary, and it was poof. Never thought about a helicopter again in my life. We landed. I was with Jonathan Moore, set up camps. We went up to this saddle in the evening. We climb up there, and Jonathan looks at me and goes, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. And we were like, yeah, we were home. Not once did the word helicopter ever get brought up in the next 3 weeks.
You guys are like stepping on the moon at that point.
We certainly felt like it.
Totally.
My one question is, I mean, obviously, as someone who's an avid splitboarder, your trilogy is like, it's almost like homework of like a how-to video. But like from going from deeper all the way to higher, like you obviously learned so much from the first trip till the end, like, and what not to do. Like, what was your biggest takeaway from like making those?
Yeah. I mean, there was the production side, which Chris Edmonds was just a total master. I mean, early on, dude, that poster I brought in, it was year 2 because my whole thing was I'm being held back by boundaries. And if I can figure out how to hike this stuff and live out there for long periods of time, I have an infinite amount of dream lines out there. That first year with Rice, we rode some nice things, but it was definitively the second year where I rode the best lines of my life, rode them on foot. But from a production perspective, it was a battle. We were solar panels were not.
To keep batteries charged and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We were down to one camera for that thing. I mean, if you look at the footage, the stabilizer's broken, the lens fog, all this stuff. I mean, we literally, as we're leaving camp, it was like, I got 60 seconds on a card. I got 5 minutes of battery. I got one lens. I mean, we took like 3 cameras to make one working camera in the end. So that was a huge situation or process, and then understanding that you need time. It was like all the really good snowboarding comes day 15 to day 23, and so often the case we'll have this objective that we go there for, and we might tag it on day 14, and people are like, yeah, awesome, we're going home. I'm like, did you see the line behind it? And I've lost some. I shouldn't say I've lost. I've put some scar tissue on some friendships late in Alaska trips where I'm like, we're not going home.
That happened. That's what Nick said. There is some folklore around a story where you guys were in Alaska camping, and the next day was supposed to be nice, and you had a line that you wanted to do, and you were pretty much out of your rations and out of your food, and everybody had like one Cliff Bar left, and you're like, guys, just sleep to conserve energy so I can ride this fucking line tomorrow. Is that true, or is that folklore?
Yeah, so the end of the trilogy...
Can't eat while you're sleeping.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So we were... It was Higher, which was the third film in the Deeper, Further, Higher, and 6 years in, and we had this final shot we wanted to get, which was above Haines. We got dropped off on the edge of the ocean and hiked all our camping stuff up to Rainbow Peak. You look at it right from Haines, beautiful line. And it's probably a 20-hour slog for us to get our stuff to camping. We go, we shoot this final line. We brought a little flask of tequila. We toast the trilogy, and we're drinking our little slushy tequila. And I go to Ryland and Ed and go, did you guys see such and such on the way in? And and they're like, yeah, I did. And we knew weather was coming in, followed by another clearing. And so we were only planning on this 2-3 nights at this thing. And I'm like, well, if we ration, we could, make it another day here and then go ride this line on the way out. And so that meant, I remember just lying in my tent. Everyone, we were like, nobody move. So we...
You're slicing the Cliff Bar in third?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. That Cliff Bar behind you that is signed. So for the listeners, we have a signed Jeremy Jones Cliff Bar that Sage and Nils had you autograph out of the wrapper for the listeners. It's an out of the wrapper Cliff Bar, and it's in like a trophy case, and it is just... Its market value is skyrocketing with these stories now. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, so the Cliff Bar thing, we lived off of those for a long time. So it's hard for me to look at Cliff Bars anymore. I reached my the first 200 were great. The next 100 were whatever, and now I can't eat them. But so the next and the. Mind you, the whole thing was we were shooting the intro to Higher, which was this aerial shot. And so we had it was a very specific shoot. So that camera gets the shot, it goes away. We ration our food. We go and climb this line called Sexy Spines out of Haines. It's a heavily documented line that's in many movies and what have you. And I remember... I'm standing on top of the line, and I have this kind of beat my slough option, which would require 4th, 5th gear type snowboarding, or there's no cameras. You can let your slough go or whatever. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know I put no thought on snowboarding after hire. I'm like, I'll just see how it feels. If I'm done, if I never want to like ride again. I mean, I knew that wasn't the case, but am I done with movies, what have you? I had no idea. And I'm standing on top of this line after climbing this big spine wall, and which is, full on Shralpinism. And I remember thinking, fuck it. And I drop in and drill, which would have been, possibly the best line of the trilogy, no cameras, and ride this line is, it at a really high level for me, and come out the bottom screaming. And it was a really special way to end the trilogy.
Those are the ones you remember the most, I feel like, too. The ones for the soul.
Yeah, that's gangster.
Yeah, love of sport lap, we call those.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious about this. So when you go ride the Gnar, the slough management, let's just go peak Jeremy Jones, maniac in Alaska, just bagging spines left and right, really riding the edge of danger. Like, it's like doing drugs. I'd imagine it's probably like smoking crystal meth. Like, it's got to be fucked up, right? I'll never know what that feels like, and I'm totally okay with that. But my question is how do you manage that crazy endorphin dump? Like, it seems like there's got to be like these crazy gnarly peaks where your endorphins are jacked up so high. There's got to be a come down from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all felt that deal. I mean, it's not like you were just going and buttering, mailboxes your whole career. So there's definitely, I mean, it's tapping the vein. It is mainlining adrenaline. I think it's something that, as I've been doing it a long time, to feel, to need to go to and grind the edge of life and death to feel alive begs questioning. And I would say what I'm most satisfied with my snowboarding right now is my needs to have a really good day in the mountains continue to lower, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Like pal surfing in the woods can be just as fun.
Yeah, just being in the mountains is enough. You don't need to risk your life all the time.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I'm healthy. I can ride bumpy hardpack all day, where I thought that ship had sailed when I was 30. I can, just splitboarding, what have you, just being in the mountains and really appreciating health and being outside.
Cool. Yeah, going back to splitboarding, talked to Jim Zellers yesterday for a while. What a legendary human that guy is. Wow. And we have a guest question from the man himself. Here we go.
Hey, Jeremy, Jim Zellers here. I'm always curious about your take on the evolution of splitboarding and how you address the patent running out from Volet and how that affected the development of the sport early on and how the sport grew right afterwards.
Oh, Jim. Jim should really answer that question. That is a loaded question, which I would expect nothing less from Jim. And so Jim had been splitboarding and Tom Bird, but Jim and his wife Bonnie, they really embraced splitboarding early on and stayed with it. And when I went to started moving my direction towards splitboarding, it was Jim that I called, and it was Jim and Bonnie that I was spending a bunch of time in the mountains. This whole Eastern Sierra that we get so much fame or hype now. I mean, him and Bonnie and a handful of other people, the Morrison brothers and Glenn Poulsen and stuff, those guys, along with a dozen other people, just had that range to themselves, and the amount of first ascents and stuff that him and his wife have done is immense. But Jim, where he has this angst is Jim lived through the stagnation period of splitboarding, where it just really, there was zero evolution, and he was beating his head against the wall. And so, yeah, Volet had a stronghold on splitboarding, and it was really hard. If you wanted to manufacture a splitboard, you had to go through Volet, and I won't go into the nuances of it, but the Volet, the patent running out for Volet, coupled with the Kloster brothers and Will Ritter, the Klosters did the Karakoram bindings, Will did the Spark bindings, the patent coming up. It led to this rapid evolution in splitboarding that had been stagnant for 15 plus years.
Were you using volets at the beginning of Deeper, and then it started getting better? Like
yeah, I mean, early on it was cutting my boards. Chris Edmonds was he'd cut my board, and then using the classic Volet plate that you put on another binding, and then I got an early pair of Sparks, and then got an early pair of Karakorams, and it was splitboarding that led me to start Jones. I just was not getting the product that I needed. When you split a board, it made it softer, so everything was kind of noodly, and I needed, my whole life at that point was splitboarding, and I needed a better splitboard.
And like those Volet things were so high off the board, dude. You're sitting like 2 inches up, no toe drag up there,
and really rolly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking back before the rise of mainstream splitboarding. It does seem crazy that people, like, now it's obvious, like, splitboarding's awesome, everybody enjoys it. But it did have that period of stagnation, and it does seem like it was a crazy boom, and you were a big part of the splitboarding boom.
Definitely. And I think about it as this fire that had been smoldering, and shout out to Cowboy and Salt Lake and the Wasatch for being a big part of the early splitboarding, the development of it. John Buffrey, I got to see his splitboard that was along a similar time. So those kind of people that did keep the pulse going, and it was like on life support, and then this fire smoldered, and then it was smoldering, and then a bunch of people, myself being one of them, but a collective effort just then ignited it, and the product got that, I don't know if it was 10, 20, 30% better, to a point where it was like, wow, these things really work.
It's insane. I feel like now my splitboard's lighter than my normal board. You're like, how does this even work? It's impressive.
So going back, we can jump around here and just jump right ahead to the advent and you founding Jones Snowboards. Now, you mentioned it was because you couldn't find the technology that really matched your riding for splitboards in the market. So I'd love to hear about you just opening up that can of worms and just diving in head first to being a founder.
Yeah, so splitboarding was a big thing, and then I was really close to Shane McConkey, who at that point, he was doing crazy shit with his skis, and so Rocker was coming into skis, and Rosignol, we were making really nice product, but it was like every 5 years I could develop a board, and there wasn't a ton of prototyping, so there wasn't a lot of experimentation in the sense of like you came up with your idea, and you'd get your computer file, and you might go medium, stiff, soft, what have you. But at Jones, there was so much from a shape perspective and camber and profiles and stuff that I wanted to do, and I never wanted to start a snowboard company and then the idea came, and a month later, after connecting with the Nidecker brothers, it was off and running.
So we have a question from none other than Andrew Miller, legendary photographer, one of the best to ever do it. And he submitted this after the deadline, so I got to do it through my phone. Classic. It's
Bad
not in the
service
machine,
out there in Crowley Lake.
Yeah, I don't know what this question is, but I think it's about product. Here we go.
What up, guys? How's it going? Andrew Miller here. I just wanted to call in with a question for Jeremy. I think it would be really interesting for the audience for you to kind of get into tech chamber mode and explain the process of testing, tweaking, repeating and your mantra of ode to progression at Jones when in terms of developing new boards. I don't think people know, how much time you spend personally on these boards, developing these boards in all type of conditions, and sometimes taking years to kind of unlock things, and once they click, having a shape that's you're super stoked on and gets your stamp of approval. So I think that would be awesome. All right, guys, see ya.
Yeah, great question, Andrew. So ode to progression is something I learned from the Surf Shaper Tomo, which is all things can be created better through design or material. Stagnation is not an option. And it is a dream to be able to have a snowboard company that, I have free will to kind of run down, chase squirrels down rabbit holes of ideas and concepts and shapes. And it's this interplay of material, flex, and profile and shape that when you get it right, it's really magic. And when designing boards, I have a really specific use for the board and also a customer in mind. So yes, it's called Jones Snowboards, but not every board. There are boards in the line that are too stiff for me. There are boards in the line that are too soft for me. There are boards that, are not, I'll get them, I'll help develop them. And we have the mantra is test, tweak, repeat. And because there's really no shortcut to great product. And just from the get-go, the amount that we're able to prototype, and then it's not, we need this board to be made. Like, we're just wandering around and going, wow, and there's a lot of dead ends, but you learn something on that dead end. And then maybe it starts coming to life and you're like, all right, we're bringing a new model to the market because it's rides like nothing we have in the line, and we think someone might like that. And from the surf shapes to, some of the splitboard stuff, so much of that stuff comes from, it's not a linear path to some of the breakthroughs that we've had.
I think one thing I admire most about you guys at Jones is it's not just boards. Like, you guys nerd out on like poles or backpacks, and I don't know, you like get a pole and you're like, no shit, this is so smart. Someone actually thought about a pole. Like, which normally companies, it's just like, take the ski pole and put the little buttons in it, and yeah.
Yeah, we're out there using it, and then we're a couple of years. We're a couple of years in with outerwear, and that's been super exciting. To, it's that mix of materials and fit and performance and durability is a big thing, and that's it's like performance, durability, innovation. Those are real pillars for us.
I heard a story that you went and tested a twin board, but you got ideas for another board through riding a twin.
Yeah, so that's what's so cool about exploring different concepts. And we came in and we didn't set out and say we're going to make a twin snowboard. We're like, if we were to make a twin, what are some ideas we would bring to a twin? There's a lot of twin snowboards out there. There's a lot of great twin snowboarders out there, but we had some different ideas that we tried and ended up really loving this twin to the point, last spring, for example, I show up to Mammoth closing day and there's 6 Jones riders and we're all on a twin. And I remember when the twin came out, we had a lot of brands being, stay in your lane, you shouldn't be making a twin. But we learned through the profile of the board and the flex pattern that that would work really well on split boards. And specifically, we could go with a little bit thinner core, and it was a way to get a lighter split board, but it wasn't noodly. And so it's this high camber, flex in the right spot, and unlike, say, traditionally a high camber board would be a really stiff. And so high camber but soft, and then we were able to cut down on materials or core material, which led to a really high performance, like bomber split board that was actually light but didn't ride light.
I love that. Andrew also mentioned that when you go riding and you go testing, that it's almost bizarre your way of, take, for example, it might be a crappy day and you're going to ride a board, but then you're going to change your angles and you're going to ride a totally different stance. And then you're going to ride a different pair of boots. And then you're going to tweak your bindings in a different way. And I would love to hear you explain why you do these tweaks.
Well, depending on like the board, maybe I'm going to ride it switch a lot more, or I'm trying to kind of put myself in the theme of that board with the stance, with the boots. And so, yeah, just always trying to emulate many different types of riders out there. And at the end of the day, really understanding what I think that customer's gonna want and trying to bring a product to them that's gonna make their time on the mountain more enjoyable.
I gotta ask, how, as a nerd, like how much forward lean you rocking? Like,
that's a good question.
You cranking it?
Yeah, what are we talking forward lean?
So as techie as everything I just said sounds, I have no idea. I run factory forward lean, whatever comes out of the binding. But what do you run?
I like to crank it, but you have one of the best towies of all time, and I figure you crank the forward lean.
Well, I mean, I don't. It seems like heel is where.
Oh, but it also that's maybe my there's where I'm wrong.
That's why you got too much toe for.
Do you run the same forward lean front and back?
I recently changed this because of Cannon Cummins. He convinced me to go. Or it's more. I think it's more in the back.
Hey, Danny Davis is calling right now. Should we just throw him on the line?
Throw him on.
Toss him on.
Danny, we're recording right now. You're with Jeremy Jones. It's the bomb hole. What do you got for us, brother?
Oh man, what a treat! Big Mountain Jeremy Jones.
BMJJ, brother.
BMJJ, as the bomb hole calls it. Oh, how are you, Jer? All's good?
All's good, man. I miss you. How are the grommets?
Oh man, she's great. It's summertime is her time for sure, dude. She's psyching on all the beach and all that good stuff. Dude, so my question for you, I won't take up your guys' time. On the notion of children, I just gotta say, like, how do you do it, Jer? How did you do it when Cass, like, I look at Cass and Mia now and I'm like, okay, these are grown, basically adults. And like, how are you like doing what we do when they were I'm just like, I'm blown away. You were getting as gnarly as you've ever been while they were just little kids and going on huge trips. How did you do it, man?
Well, thanks for that question.
Big ups to Tiff, because that's, I know a lot of it probably fell on her. So,
Yeah, you said that well. Big ups to Tiff for sure. My wife has been this incredible rock, raising the kids, really running Jones Snowboards, and allowing me to go off into the mountains. But it's interesting because since I had kids, my production levels have gone way up from a movie perspective, because I realized if I was leaving home, I better be making a movie. And so, and my thing, I always looked at it from a 12-month perspective. And my job looked like shit in March and April, meaning from a family perspective. But I was able to be around my kids so much. And so from a 12-month perspective, I do feel like I was winning as a father.
So what I heard there, Danny, for you is if you're leaving the house, you better be making a movie.
No dilly-dallying.
I better be climbing, I don't know, something crazy in the Himalaya or doing a really long walk at home. I was thinking about the big long walk here in California, and Haley's like, "You're still gone." I'm like, yeah, no, yeah. But it's close. Like, I'm like, "You can help your food drops, come and see me." She's like, "I'm not into that, dude." I'm like, okay.
It is funny how you do. I'm the same way. I'm like, well, I'm Sierra Base. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter to them. To us, it feels like we're home, though.
Exactly. All right, boys, I'll let you get back to it. That was killer. I'm glad I got that in.
Thanks, Danny.
Appreciate you, Dan. All right, big news coming at you from the bomb hole. CAPiTA has launched their whole new collection. All of new boards are available now, so check them out. Now, of course, you got staples like the DOA. Everyone loves that thing. Everyone loves the Black Snowboard of Death. Coquard's been putting a beat down on jumps with that thing for years. And then if you're a female, the Birds of a Feather is beloved. That board is awesome. I'm also hearing the newcomers to CAPiTA are loving the Aeronaut, the Megadeth, and the Spring Break Resort Twin. You might see Joey Fava crab walking down the hill on that thing, putting a beat down on the steel. He makes that thing look awesome. And for me personally, I love the Navigator. When it comes to riding powder, riding the resort, I ride the 161 or the 164. It's huge, but it's soft. That's what I love about it. It's a big board, but you can still have fun on it. You can still maneuver it around. So the CAPiTA Navigator would be my recommendation for powder. And then for park, I love the Indoor Survival. Can't go wrong. Great board for presses, great board for park jumps. It's fantastic. And the one thing about CAPiTA I think is really special is that their factory is handmade in Austria with 100% clean energy. All the boards are handmade, 100% clean energy. Can't go wrong. They're world-class production over there. They make great snowboards. So check out their new website, capitasnowboards.com, or your local snowboard shop, and see if you see anything you like. I don't think you'll be disappointed. A lot of people hit me up when they come to town. They say, Chris, where should I stay when I come to Salt Lake? And I always tell them the Evo Hotel. It's in a great location. It's got a bunch of kick-ass stuff. They got a skateboard park, indoor and outdoor. They have a climbing gym, if you're into that sort of thing, which I am not. They have a coffee shop. They have a rooftop bar with a nice ambiance. They have a full-blown retail space with every type of snowboard item you could ever want, or skateboard or mountain bike. You can fly to town. Oh, you don't want to bring your mountain bike? Cool. They got rentals. You can rent them there. Same goes for snowboards. And then at that retail space, they do premieres. They do all kinds of cool events all year round over at Evo. Good staples of the community here in Salt Lake. And little fun fact, every guest that came here for the 200th episode stayed at the Evo Hotel. And they all had a good time. So if you're interested in coming to Salt Lake, you're planning that trip, I recommend checking out the Evo Hotel. Well, all this talk about parenthood and whatnot, we have a question from Spawn of BMJJ, a.k.a. your son, Cass.
Whoa.
Here we go.
Right.
What up, Dad? It's your son, Cass. Just got a few questions for you. Just wondering when you're going to hit that back three on the cat track below chute 75. Seems like it's due. Also wondering what emotions were going through your head after that loss in pickleball right before you went to Salt Lake. Stoked to hear the show. See you later.
He sounded so old there and mature. Yeah, so the back three under chute 75 is coming. I got to make good on that. And
what are we talking?
I like that.
Is there a gap?
He's freestyling. What are we talking?
Describe to me.
Step down?
So there is the most perfect kind of toe hook off the cat track into a long landing that on a run that it's at the end of 70% of the runs you do at the bottom of off a KT. Mm-hmm. And so he's sick of watching me dodge. You got to be really careful with kids when you're like, oh yeah, I've hit that, and they're like, well, let's see it.
What are we talking? Indie, melon? What's your go-to grab on a
that would be a indie for sure. And
is this where we're heading? Is this foreshadowing? Because you started freestyle, moved toward the big mountains. I'd love to see BMJJ, back in the park. I heard the methods are flowing like the salmon of the Capistrano these days. Heard those have been coming back hot.
Yeah, it's definitely not where the trajectory is going. But no, it is cool to be out there with my kids and all their friends that are just teeing off of everything. And so they are getting me back in the air more than normal, getting me in the park a little more than I normally would be. And you're not going to be seeing any freestyle video parts coming anytime soon. So don't hold your breath on that. But I do need to dust off the backside 3. That's just laziness that I've not tapped into that.
I mean, twin tip, when are we seeing the Cap
Yeah,
5?
that's a good
little
question.
Cap 5 maybe here and there.
Posy.
You're
Cap
feeling
5.
good after the back 3. Next thing you know, you're going in switch.
Yeah, I do. You know, I got a cab 3 that is pretty current, ironically.
I heard that a lot of back 180s and switch back 180s you've been busting down too. That's what Cass was telling me.
I do got a mean 180 and switch game. That's true.
And then part 2, he said you were quite angry after he beat you in pickleball. He said,
Yeah. So we are a heavy gaming family, meaning it's foosball, ping pong, pickleball, hoops, cornhole, on and on and on. Chess. Like I have a thing with my kids in chess. First time they beat me without bishops is $20. First time there's all these money grab, like the first time you beat me in something, you get money, and it's a one-time payout. But yeah, my wife and I were playing Cass and his buddy Roan, and he got to a point where they just would not. It was, I think it was like the final score was like 13-11. It's supposed to go to 11, so super heated, and they just were keeping the ball from me, and yeah, we get in. And the funny thing is, though, my version of heated compared to his version of heated. I mean, at points he's kind of mellowed out now, but where his screaming, I was worried about the neighbors calling the cops for child abuse. So he's not one to talk about losing his cool.
yeah, he said that you were so angry that you basically barely gave him a fist bump when you walked off. So,
he's overstating that.
Let's talk about, he's growing up. I was looking at his clips, Cass is ripping snowboard, your daughter as well. I was even asking Cass if his dad pushed him a lot growing up, and it sounds like your environment is just like, do it, have fun in the mountains, enjoy your time. What's your philosophy with raising kids around snowboarding and getting them to find the love?
Yeah, so my biggest fear as a parent was over pushing my kids in the things that I want to do my whole life, which is really snowboarding, surfing, bike and climb and things of that nature. But the main one was like, don't fuck up the snowboarding and surfing. And so my technique was I was so afraid of over pushing as much as I really wanted them to go snowboarding. We had a rule, if we're going to the mountain, it's 3 runs, you get a cookie. We want to bail after that. I don't say a word. And it's funny, now he's gotten older and he's really into snowboarding, and he's like, man, I blew it. I should have, years 8 to 10, I left so much snowboarding on the table. Why didn't you push me harder then? And so I've somewhat created some monsters in my kids where they have extreme froth for surf and snow.
Which is like, I mean, obviously you're stoked for whatever they do, but that's got to be like such a cool feeling to share that with them.
Yeah, it's the ultimate. I think it's in many ways this phase of my snowboarding is one of my favorite phases. Probably most favorite, just being out there with my family, and you realize how awesome these sports are. Just from whether or not you're a dad or a mom who doesn't like, cold weather or what have you, the time on the mountain, that parent relationship goes away and your partner's out there, whether you all get stuck on the lift together or whatever happens out there, it's like you're a team. And it's really the strongest time we spend and getting up for dawn patrol, surfing, getting caught on the inside, taking a bunch of waves on the head, whatever it is. It's just so powerful, and it has given me an even deeper appreciation for the power of these sports.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I love that. We've been talking about how on it you are this whole show, Jeremy. And, I've been told by the people I talked to yesterday that you're not always fucking on it. Like you forget stuff at the trailhead, and there's a lot of moments where you're on it with your safety and stuff, but you might not bring lunch. Like, Elena told me that you have ate her lunch like 3 times this winter because you forgot her lunch and you forgot things. And there was another folklore story that Nick told me that you were going out splitboarding to Talac or something like that, and you forgot your boots. So you essentially ran what seemed to be Uggs on a touring mission type of thing. Is that true or false?
Yeah, so we call that tight loose is the word for tighten some things, loosen others. But those are all accurate descriptions. I also have these upcycled, totally organic poles known as sticks that come out at least once a year. I forget my poles. But yeah, one day, so Talac, we call it Mother Talac. It's our biggest mountain right on the lake. It's a 3,200 foot climb, and it's an hour drive to get there. And I get there, and at that point, this was a while ago, but I was having some boot issues, and so I was mixing liners and shells and stuff, and I get to the trailhead, and I'm like, oh shit, all I had was liners. And so, but I had these Sanuk sidewalk surfers, those, they're basically flip-flops with some cloth on top. And so I put the Sanuks in as the base of my boot, and then put the liners on top of that. And
good board feel on those.
Well, the irony is the side hilling and stuff was quite challenging. I didn't have foot pain for the first time in a couple weeks. And then the run down, I had so much ankle mobility. It was like one notch above the old Burton Backhill bindings. And I just slowed everything down and just noodle fest, knees together, and had a ball on the run down.
New feeling.
I'm guessing you rigged up some volet straps too. There's usually volet straps involved in a situation like this.
There must have been. All I remember is just the loosest, barely in my bindings. Just a notch above pow surfing.
That's amazing. Silk, we haven't really hit much Patreon questions. Maybe we could hit that Tom Wilson North question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Also, thanks to our Patreon members that support us. You guys kick ass. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your support. Yeah, questions from Tom Wilson North. Question is essentially, what is the sketchiest moment of your career, and what did it teach you?
Well, Tom is a friend, so thanks for that. God, there's been a lot. I think from, say, watching, I saw my brother get buried in an avalanche, completely buried, and I was the only one to get to him. That was a shock. I've been flushed off of many mountains. I've fallen in no fall zones. And the general theme of that is, or the teachings of that is just such, it's humiliating and humbling. And it's usually, it's kind of like there'll be years before I have in between a close call, and you think you're past it, and then the mountains just slap you down, and it's like you're crawling back to home after that, and yeah, you go back to ground zero and just slowly chip your way back into snowboarding. But a lot of times it's like the last thing you want to do is touch a snowboard after something like that.
I got a similar question along this line. When are you going to come back and try and point the hypodermic needle again?
Oh, man. That's funny you brought that up. That was that had to be the hardest impact crash I've ever had. I broke my backpack straps. My gloves came off. Have any of you guys tomahawked where your gloves come off?
I've had one.
I haven't, no.
Yeah. So
Did you break your thumb or something?
No, I didn't. I had no injury. I definitely hit my head and light concussion. But that was a crazy thing. I was thinking about that as I was coming out here. I connected with Pete O'Brien. Do you know Pete?
I don't.
He was a longtime TGR filmer, came from Stowe, early snowboarder, ripping boarder. But he was excited when I started deeper, and he's like, and I told him about hypodermic needle, and he's like, it's in, get out here. And I drove, I think I got to his house at like midnight, slept on the floor, went to the Waikular. Is that where you hike up?
Oh, you went up that way?
Yeah.
Oh, the shitty way.
So I go up and mind you, sure, I'd driven through the canyon. I hadn't put eyes on the hypodermic needle in 8 years or something. So I'm climbing in the dark. Pete, I want to say, we might have started together, and then he branched off for his camera angle. So I'm climbing the Y in pitch black by myself. I get to the top of the hypodermic needle. The sun's coming up, and I am just so amping, dude. And it's early on my foot power. I mean, it just like shaking with excitement. I had no plans of pointing the thing, and I drop in, and I was so, I just got rolling down that thing, and I just full white moment. I was having one, and it was weird. It was like this optical illusion in where I'm like, I'm pointing the thing. And I started pointing it, and then I like came over, visually the chute grew, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm way higher up this thing than I thought, pointing it. And I come out of it, and
the apron is like baked.
Well, that's the problem. So I'd never seen the apron, and I come into the apron, and
cooking.
I am max velocity.
Smelling salts are flowing through the nose.
As fast as you can go. I'm at terminal velocity. And I come around the corner, and yeah, it's undulated, and it's not flat. And then way out in the distance is a pile of rocks. And I'm on my heels, and I'm like, fuck, I got to lay this thing down. And so I purposely just try to lie down, and
on your back?
On my back.
Oh my God.
And because it was on I'm in the middle of kind of making a heel turn. I think I would have been better off on my toes. And I hit the ground and just boom, boom, boom. And I actually don't think I tumbled that. It wasn't a ton of tomahawks, which is the worst. You're way better off if you're going to tomahawk, like tomahawking a steep face. Looks dramatic, but when you tomahawk in the flats, it's a car accident.
A little more force.
Yeah.
And I mean, the snow was boot top deep at best, and I put a hot tub in the ground there. I basically just impaled myself or cratered into the ground. And yeah, that was the hardest impact I've ever had snowboarding.
Damn. Yeah, that thing is, not to my knowledge has anyone ever pointed that thing.
Yeah, it's
with
psychotic.
success,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, so I need to rebate that thing for sure.
A couple wiggles in there. Maybe.
Yeah.
Now it might be hard because there might be a skin track coming up. I feel like you might have an extra little
I'm not
thing to dodge.
To be clear, I'm not rebating the straight run.
Another thing, going back, obviously so much human powered snowboarding since the heli days, but there is clips in the old standard videos when I was going back through. I can't remember which one, where you're like man on a wire dangling like 200 feet below the heli, and they're like putting you into this really narrow chute. I don't know where this is. Excuse my ignorance, but I'd love to hear about. Do you know the one I'm talking about particularly?
Yeah. Yeah, that was Tulsa, British Columbia, and just this really beautiful pinner chute with 2 towers. And I'm like, oh, that looks nice. And the guy's like, well, we could long line you in there. And I'm like, really? Let's do it. And he's like,
is this age 24?
No, this is probably 28. Okay. And yeah, maybe 26. But it was funny. I remember the guy, he's like, oh, fuck, he's serious. He really wants to do that. He was kind of joking. I'm like, let's do it, man. And then he makes this big point. He like, we're getting ready to do it. And he pulls out this knife and he's like, you know, if anything happens with the helicopter, I'm going to have to cut you. Like, all right, whatever. And so, yeah, get long lined into that thing. And it's really quiet underneath the helicopter. Hopefully none of you have dangled underneath a helicopter because it usually means it's a rescue. Yeah. But yeah, that did not freak me out for whatever reason.
Cool. Insane. I got a question on those huge lines, like back then too. How big of a board? It looks like you're riding like a hog, like a 180 or something, but like,
yeah, 170, 169, 172. I actually was just at a Shane Lebsack, Rosignol Rep's house, and he had a 172 full camber, like 25 centimeters wide, 172 stiff, and I don't know, it had to be like a 10 or 11 meter side cut.
Damn.
Yeah, I'd love to take that thing for a rip again.
Yeah, no trees.
Yeah.
You might make the hypodermic needle with that thing, actually.
Totally.
Might be able to straight line it and stay up.
Just a hog.
I need a parachute to like throw the chute to like those drag race cars.
Yes. Yep.
We could get you some super baggy pants, maybe.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, the Aladdin fits. We'll get the Aladdin fits. All right, I want to go through. So this list of video projects is the most fucked up one I've ever seen on this show. Let's just go through this real quick. So you have TB6 Carpe Diem, the Continuum, you have Snow Riders 2 Harvest TB8, you have Uprising TB9, you have the Realm TB10 Optograb Further, and then you have Best of TB series, you have Mind the Addiction, The Prophecy, High Life, Soul Purpose, Tangerine Dream, Follow Me Around, the big one, Lost and Found, That's It, That's All, Under the Influence, Deeper, then you have The Art of Flight, then you have Further, McConkey, then you have Higher, Maru, The Search for Freedom, The Fourth Phase, Rogue Elements, 28 Winters, Ode to Muir, Far Out, and Roadless. This is up to 2019, so there might be even things missing on that, but like, what a fucking insane resume of video projects to be a part of. And with that list, my question would be like, what are you the most psyched on in all this? What one means the most to you?
Well, yeah, you missed the Absinthe era, and one of my all-time favorite, 91 Words for Snow.
Oh my God, yeah, that was
40 plus.
Yeah,
we're close, somewhere close to triple digits if you really sharpen the pencil on that stuff. But yeah, I mean, the fact that I got to have some of the best days of my life and be with my brothers, that was an incredible era. The time with the Hatchet brothers was phenomenal. Learned so much from those guys. The app, spending time with Justin Hostenick and the Absinthe crew, and that was amazing. And then the foot-powered stuff, though, that's where it was like, I felt like that was where I moved the ball forward. And to achieve success on foot requires such a deep intimacy with the mountains and requires so much teamwork and incredible hard work by a lot of times, sure, I got this long hike or whatever, but the camera operators have the hard work, and then you get home from these mega days and you gotta dump footage and get batteries going and all that, and that stuff. I think when I switched into that foot powered deal, it just was so much. It was like the mission became more important and required such a collective, all in effort by everyone.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to find a splitboard filmer too. It's like it's got to be the right person. And I've worked with like Ninja, who is maybe the gnarliest filmer of all time. No one knows about, and has he been with you on like a lot of the big stuff, right?
Yeah. So Nick Kalish, Ninja, Top Productions. Ironically, was riding bikes with him yesterday, and he's a kid that came out from Chicago, hockey player, and he came on his first foot powered trip was for further in Austria. Ended up being our toughest trip. It was minus 27, and he came in just as tech support, and he started, he's like, is it okay if I come? And he started coming out with us, and he was just so solid and sturdy and such a master, such a ninja on camera. He became a staple for a really long time. And yeah, there's so many of those foot-powered guys. And women. Leslie Hittmeyer, we did this HBO film called Edge of the Earth, and she's like, there's the Barbie people, and then there's the on-slope people, and she's one of the best on-slope cinematographers, and ended up climbing Mount Bertha with us. And yeah, there's so many. B-Dan, the foot-powered, Matty Harriger. I mean, I could go on and on, but just so much respect for those guys.
To bring it back to that Austria trip, there's always this funny quote that we bring up as friends a ton, but I think there's like a clip and you come up and you're like, I just had to put my layer back on. I've never had to do that. And I'm like, fuck, I'm so soft. I'm always putting my layer back on. That one rings.
Management.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'd love to talk about the Himalayas. That's just gnar. I'd love to hear you just elaborate on.
Yeah, I mean that when we were talking about the gnar, that was real science fiction stuff for me, and that was a big swing for me in the sense of Chris Figenshaw. I've done so much, probably climbed more lines with him than anyone. He's on-slope camera operator and XM guide, and I wanted to try to find something in the Himalaya. It was the sequel to what was going to be my final film, Higher, and he found a picture of the most beautiful spine wall I've ever seen in the library, and the window for that was September. And the way if it was going to happen, I had just gotten off of, I did a kind of a bender. I rode this the Otter Body on the Grand, Mount Timlin in Eastern Alaska Range, which is maybe the line that I'm most proud of. That was a real miracle for that to happen. Then I went to Denali, and I came back from Denali, and I'm like, oh man, I'm ready to like get my feet in the sand. And Chris is like, dude, look at this photo. But if we're going to do it, we got to do it now. And so just to go out, and I think it took 12 days to just get to the base of the line, to look at it, to determine if it might be rideable. And then got there, and it was really hard climbing to get to the ridge. It was really rotten snow, and it was just so it was like an alien land in the sense of the snow and being, there's never been in mountains like that and been at altitude like that. And it was so...
What is the altitude there, out of curiosity?
So high.
So our high camp was like 17.8, and then the line was just under 21,000 feet.
Jesus.
But what you don't realize is...
Snow is shit up there, probably.
The snow is... Yeah, so my first run on the mountain, I go and I'm with Luca Pandolfi, who sadly is no longer with us, and we claw our way 3/4 of the way up the line, and we get... and I kind of drop into my second run of the trip. So second time I've been on a snowboard since June, and it's this big spine wall, and the snow is killer. I cannot believe I'm like full pow, and I drop in, and just partying, awesome powder, but I'm all of a sudden I'm come out of breath. Like I cannot breathe. And what you don't realize is that you use a lot. Snowboarding downhill is a ton of cardio, more than going uphill. Like walking, you can kind of, sure, you walk slow, but you get in your cardio zone and it's a slow chip. And so I go to pull up and I'm on my heels, which pro tip to anyone, when you're riding serious lines, everything, you really want to favor toes. You have so much more grip to the mountain with the toes. I've beat into my kids. When you land in air, toe turn first. Anyway, toe heavy lines, pro tip. But anyway, I'm on my heels and I'm like, I got to pull up and stop. I go to pull up and stop, and I swear there's a avalanche the size of this table that's 6 inches deep, pulls me off the mountain, and I get flushed down the mountain, probably 1,500 vertical feet, and that's kind of the equivalent of if you were to get a big wave on the head and just get thrashed. But I take that big wave on the head, and I'm already, before it even happened, I'm like seeing spots, I'm out of breath. So I get flushed off the mountain, and it's the only time in my life I've had this where I'm seeing black. I'm like, oh my God, blacking out my lungs and my face, like the capillaries. Like I just did a lot of internal damage or tweaking of my whole, lung system and everything. And yeah, and then I still, that was my second run. And
dude, holy shit.
So then I dust myself off. We got our window. We're there. And I remember Pandolfi was just like, what the fuck, man? The spine master just got flushed off this thing. And we're already at altitude. It's a joke, you ask someone how they're feeling. It's like, oh, I got a cough. I can't sleep. I can't, I got an upset stomach. You go, oh, so you're doing good. I mean, that's just life at altitude. So go back a day or two later and summit the thing, and this cloud comes in. And I make a bed out of my board, and I lie on top of the peak for 2 hours in and out of sleeping, waiting for this one cloud in the range that's there. And it doesn't come. And so we ride down the ridge and ride back down our boot pack, and it was wild. Thankfully, the window didn't break because my legs were smoked, like spending that time and rest. I could barely snowboard. And then we have a day off, and it looks like the line's not going to happen, but the kind of weather clears, and I'm like, all right, one last go on this thing. And Pandolfi wasn't feeling good; he backs out, so I go up there with Chris Figgenshaw and go to ride and I'm at the top, and I'm feeling out the snow, and there's like a teeny bit of crust. I think that cloud put a little sun crust on the line. Have you guys, you ever feel that?
Oh, yeah.
Convection crust.
It's like long wave radiation.
It's a brutal thing. It can ruin a range like that. So anyways, there's a little crust, but so I go on below, I'm on rope, make a couple turns on rope, and I don't mind the crust. It's kind of, I can get my board through it. It's a nice crust. It's keeping me stuck on the mountain. Well, I get, so I go off belay and I'm riding down, and then and I'm thinking in my head, as I get lower, that crust is going to soften a little bit and it's going to be perfect. Well, the crust got a little bit thicker as I went, and then I couldn't get my edge into the crust, and and you're really vulnerable going toe to heel. Have you ever ridden like icy, techie steeps and you feel good on your toe, you go to your heel and you lose your edge? So I had been working on this move through the whole trilogy on like, do you ride with the Ice X in your front hand or your backhand?
What do you do?
What do you do?
I go backhand.
Yeah, so
I
backhand.
try not to ride with the Ice X.
Yeah, so you do not.
I don't know an Ice X.
You don't want to. Forever, I rode with the backhand, but the reality is, how you're going to get flushed off a mountain. Say if it's steep and technical, is you're on your toes, you feel good, you go to make a heel turn, you can't hold it, and you get flushed off. So.
The front hand.
Yeah, so I had a situation where I had gotten spit off a mountain and was able to adjust. It was fine. It was on Mount Timlin a couple months prior, and it was a heel turn, and I'm like, oh, axe got to be in the front hand. And not only does axe got to be in the front hand, as you're making your hop turn, you got to place the axe right away, because if you don't catch the fall right away, you're not going to catch it. And so on that line, I'm stuck on my toes, but I want to make turns down it. So I do make some heel turns. And 3 times I catch a fall with my axe. And when you watch it, you got to watch really close to see it, because the only way you're going to catch a fall is if you do it immediately. So you don't realize that I'm catching these falls, but it's going right to the heel, axe immediately in, and boom. And like to the point where I hurt my shoulder on one of them because it's such a abrupt thing. And so that descent took me 45 minutes, and it was just so on the sharp end and so deeply focused, hanging on that mountain by the slightest of edge, and certainly not the descent that I wanted to have on that mountain. But that's what the mountains gave me, and was able to battle my way down it.
Did you feel better going down with like the elevation, or is it not big enough of a?
It's not big enough, and each hop turn is a box jump basically.
Yeah.
And so and then it's diminishing returns at altitude, and it's because it's funny, we all have coughs and all, as I mentioned. But as soon as when we bailed, we got down to 12,000 feet into the first forest, and like all our coughs went away.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instantly feel better.
Damn. Well, along those lines, you mentioned your line that you're most proud of, just in passing right there. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so Mount Timlin, it's in the eastern Alaska range. And so, again, the beauty of being a split boarder or foot-powered skier or snowboarder, there is so much unridden mountains in the world that are incredible. And it's wild because you go to a place like Denali or these certain zones, and they're just so consolidated, or especially from a climbing perspective. We've seen the pictures of Mount Everest, the conga line that starts in base camp to the summit, and you go to a 7,000 meter foot peak and you're putting steps no human's ever been to. But so I end up on a whim in the eastern Alaska range, and it's really, I think, to all the Shralpinists out there, the eastern Alaska range is so stacked with big, huge, rippable lines, but snow conditions are hard to get. But I'd gotten wind that they were having a good winter, so I went and checked it out. Pull into Tok, Alaska, and this guy, and I'm like, hey, can we do a scenic flight? And we're in the airplane, and we're flying the range, and halfway through, he's like, so you guys snowboarders, what are you guys doing? Because we were like, doing all our talk and circle this, and like so game face, like it's a football game out there in the sense of, coaches talking plays and stuff. And I find this beautiful line that was going to be our warm-up line. We're getting ready to go into the mountains, and there's this horrific avalanche in Loveland Pass. And Joe Timlin, who's the Jones rep at the time, is one of 3 people that pass away in that avalanche. And the last thing I want to do is go into the mountains, but it's also a good, as I mentioned, it's a good headspace where I remember getting dropped off on the plane. We have our massive objective. It looks huge. And you're afraid to just move across 10 feet off of where you land. You're going to fall in a hole or whatever. And you really spend the first day or two just staring up at the stuff. And the main objective, I don't even look at it early on because I won't be able to sleep. It's like, where can we start? And so I'm there with Ryland Bell, and we're chipping our way through the mountains, and we get on the face, and the wind had came up, and the face is now bulletproof. And we're like, fuck, that thing is out, and we're in the eastern Alaska range where it doesn't snow much. Like, the trip's a bust. But we got all this food, and we're like, do we try to relocate? Do we bail? And then I'm like, well, Alaska's been so good to us that this is, it's a bust. We'll shoot a little segment about getting skunked and walking away. You don't always get your objective. No big deal. And so we have fun out there for a couple days of sun, and then the storm comes in, like kind of 10, 12 days into the trip, and we have a weather guy that we pay for that gives us, and God, I can't believe Mike, I can't remember his last name. He's Otta Juno. Sorry, Mike. He's such a god to us on these trips. Friend of Ed Shanley's, and they text us weather on what's going on because there's no weather forecast, and it's so critical. And he's like, yeah, you might.
This is over a sat phone?
Yeah, it's over a sat phone, those little inReaches. So he texts it over to us like, yeah, you guys might get like some wind and maybe a foot of snow. And anyways, this massive storm comes in with a ton of wind. It smokes our cook tent. We get about 7 feet in camp, which is, it's like a season's worth of snow in this part of the range.
7 feet. Oh, I remember this. You're digging your tents out?
Yeah, and which... In Glacier National Park, that's very common. And other parts of Alaska, it's like, bring a bunch of shovels. That's nothing. But here, this super unexpected storm, and so a little sidebar, we launched from this place called Black Rapid Lodge, where it's like the one backcountry skier in the range. I see him 6 years later, and he's like, I hadn't seen him since we left in the mountains. We didn't go back there. And he's like, oh, I figure you guys got smoked. His lodge is like 30 miles from where we were. He said the wind came up. It ruined the mountains. We got like 2 inches of snow. We were basically done for the year. And so we get this miracle 7-footer on us, this little honey hole.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, witchcraft. And after 4 days of not seeing anything, we're hearing avalanches all over the place and just going, man, I would love to see. I felt like our camp was in the right spot, but we didn't think it was going to snow 7 feet. And literally avalanches cross the valley. We are in a safe spot, but you don't remember. You're kind of like, fuck, this is a lot of snow, and we haven't seen these mountains in a while. And it clears, and the whole line is spined up. And Ryland and Ed and Lucas Murley, we just cannot believe our eyes. And so we start going up there and figuring it out. There was all this black ice under the snow up high, though. And so that's where I got flushed by my heels in a much safer spot, learned the heel trick, and eventually figure out it's like my 4th attempt on the face. There was this huge ridge that I loved, and climbing ridges is really a nice place to be in the mountains. You can't get hit by avies, but it ended up being the only way up that mountain to summit was to center punch this 3,800 foot face. And Ed Shanley and I climbed it and just had perfect pow, perfect in this like fully fluted space or fluted face. And it was just the ultimate gift. And it was, you know, and I ended up naming it Mount Timlin after Joe, who passed away.
I mean, I remember those shots. They're like beautiful.
Legendary. Wow. So for the non-Shralpinist sitting in the middle of the two Shralpinists here, you know, I think about these things. It's not just the line too. It's the road to get there. And I'm guessing there's days on end where you're just intense, just waiting out a storm. Like, what the hell are you guys doing in the mountains when it's just snowing or it's socked in? You're not leaving camp. Like, what do you guys do to pass time when you're in those high alpine camps?
Yeah, it's a lot of, I mean, the journey is the reward that is not my quote, but it became our mantra with these films. It's like, where this is all about the journey. The ingredients needed to line up one of these faces in good snow, good light with working cameras. It's a mini miracle every time it happens, but bring a lot of board games. I'm a big gamer, so we get the Risk out, we get the chess, get the cards, so a lot of gaming. And then in the big storms, it's trench warfare. I mean, you got to set your clock at night to dig out your tent every 3-4 hours, depending on the storm. You get to a point where what happens is your tent is surrounded by snow because you're throwing all the snow up, and you are throwing the snow, but the wind comes and it just will. I mean, if you let it go for 8 hours, you'd go and your tent would just be completely flat and smoothed out. So, but that shit, I love that stuff.
Yeah. I have never, ever been in a situation like that.
Silk, how do you think you do in that situation?
I don't know. I wear a lot of cotton.
Yeah, a lot of cotton. You don't want cotton, huh? That's
Jim Zellers and Tom Burt, they wear cotton.
Cotton advocates.
Yeah. And Tom Burt, he not only cotton, he white tube socks, and he has
I'm wearing those right now.
Tom Burt, pro tip, vapor barrier. He's like, I'm like, so what's your foot technique, Tom, on our first thing? He's all, I run a vapor barrier. And I'm like, wow, that sounds sick. Like, what's the vapor barrier? And he says, well, you just take like a grocery store plastic bag, you put that on your foot, and then you put the white tube sock over it, and your socks never get wet.
Wow. Oh, my God.
Genius.
There we go.
I got a question for like those big faces. I've never been to Alaska or experienced like riding spines like that. Do you try to go like on your toes, like right to left? Or you're goofy, but like,
yeah.
Because the heel, you'll like get smoked by your slough. Just any tips on that? Asking for a friend,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, especially in the real steep stuff, is really try to work, with the direction of your toes. So left to right for. Hold on, I'm snowboarding down. Yeah,
you're looking for left,
right
like
to left,
like
right to left. Yeah, I'm surfing lefts. You're surfing rights.
Yeah. I'm goofy.
He's goofy.
Oh, you're goofy.
I'm surfing rights. Yeah,
you're surfing rights.
Yep. That's cool. Also, the thing, think about all these big lines and stuff, and the way it's evolved for you guys. In like, it used to be a Polaroid picture, and then you'd get to the top and be like, all right, my fucking thing's down here. Then digital camera, and now cell phones, and even this print that we have that we're going to talk about later. Talking about your exit and how you always want a clean exit, and knowing where your little key moments are to. Your benchmark, your landmarks, so to speak, in riding lines. I think that stuff's so fascinating because it always looks so much different when you're on top.
Yeah, so you start with your exit for sure because you have to anticipate what happens if I get flushed off the mountain, and so that's really the most critical part of it is finding clean exits. And so when I'm looking in a range for lines, I'm looking low the whole time. Clean exits, and then you look up.
Bottom up.
Makes sense. I have another question because you mentioned earlier how if you're not riding the same line twice, like evolving that way. But do you ever find lines where you ride them once and then you're like, okay, maybe I could like go back and ride that a little differently, or like maybe I back 3 Indy into it, or like something like that? Because that's kind of been something I've been thinking about lately.
Yeah, I mean, it's like once that boot pack is in, that's another thing that really I got addicted to is climbing these faces, because you're on them for hours on end and climbing spines. The thing with spines, why we love our spines is, you have the ultimate max gravity riding them, which is killer. That means it's almost like you're on your 2-stroke with your throttle, because you point the board for 3 feet and you got speed. But they're also really much safer than these broad, big faces. And it is so cool when you get, when you're climbing a spine wall and you're on that spine, you're in a really safe spot at that point. To get to that spot can be hard, but you're in this no man's land, spaceman on a tether, but you're actually totally safe. And so that's why this whole foot-powered thing is why I'm still so excited about snowboarding, is I really do enjoy the climbing aspect of it. It's just such a grander experience with the snowboarding.
And also what we've realized too, it's like obvious, but splitboarding's great because the banter, like it could be a shit day. It's a shit day. Sometimes the banter up is better than the ride down.
It's true.
And if you change your mentality where you're not going out there to do a cab 9 and you're like, I'm kind of just here for the
banter,
to fucking talk shit to Griff. It's pretty damn fun, you know?
Yeah, and sorry, to answer your question, once the boot pack's in, for sure, let's pick every piece of fruit on that face.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I like that. You know what time of the show it is here, Silk?
I feel like it might be time for name that video part.
So, Jeremy, I've been told that you may be absolutely horrendous at this segment. I was told that don't expect you to do well in this from some of your friends.
All my friends. Yeah. Well, the thing is I watch a movie when it comes out. Ideally, I'm at the premiere, and I never watch it again.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so your confidence level 0 through 10 right now on guessing a video part.
Yeah, I would say a 3.
3, okay.
Not bad.
All right, here we go. Let's see how he does.
Wait, this is off of just a song?
Yep.
Oh, that goes down to 1.
Yeah.
Here we go. Keep
okay,
going.
so this is it's like the song that's playing in the background of a video part.
Right.
It's to preserve video culture.
I like it.
Okay.
That's all you give me? I got nothing on that.
That's a pretty rogue song.
Wow.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jeremy, you are in a elite class of people that have not gotten their own video part songs. And it's like you and Jamie Anderson.
And Sean Wyatt.
Yeah,
and maybe one more person.
Maybe, yes. Think about that. Yeah, we should almost have a jersey in the rafters for people who don't get their own video part.
Gotta hang that
like
up
a straight Hall of Fame. That's
well, I don't even. It's like I'd never even heard that song before.
It's Standard Films Lost in Transition, I believe is.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say almost said translation, but it is Lost in Transition. And
so, a funny story on that. We were editing actually to the Himalayas, for hire, and we're and that Himalaya segment was so out there that I wanted that the ground control to Major Tom tune.
Yep.
And the editor's like, man, I feel like that's been in a snowboard movie.
It's in your part.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I'm surprised you didn't tee that song up.
Yeah, so it's in there for like a week, and he's like, I don't know, man, and I'm like, I don't know, this sounds so good, and I was listening to that song a ton.
Hasn't been used.
And then a week in, he's like, hey, check out this video part. And it's major, or it's an absent video part.
I love that part.
Incredible. Reusing your own video part song. Also legendary move.
Unprecedented.
Yeah.
I have a question though, because you obviously got into making videos. What was like the one growing up or kind of that like inspired you to start making a video? There had to be like one at the beginning.
Well, I mean, the early video stuff was the early standard stuff, and a lot of it, like the to get snowboarding or Fear of Flat Planet. I mean, those early Burton videos. But Craig Stump, he started shooting Craig. So that's where I was getting a lot of, especially the freeride type stuff. But no question, the standard films, early standard stuff, fall line films, that stuff, I was wearing out the VHS tape.
Cool. For part 2, name that video part. This isn't for you, Jeremy. You don't have to worry. This is for the people listening. I'm going to play the song. If you know the song, comment on the photo of Jeremy on Instagram when the episode comes out, and that's where we pick our winner. Here we go. Good luck. Okay. Thank you guys for playing. Name that video part. Now, do you find yourself slowing down a little bit in your older age, maybe getting off hill a little earlier? Well, you could be dehydrated. 75% of Americans are dehydrated. And that goes up when you're at elevation, when you're in the mountains. So I drink Bubs Hydrate or Die hydration packets. There's 2,000 milligrams of electrolytes. There's no added sugar. There's no artificial flavors. Let me tell you, when I'm hydrated, I ride better. I can ride longer. I have more energy. All in all, my vitality is just better. So if you're interested in picking up some Bubs Naturals Hydrate or Die, head on over to bubsnaturals.com and use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off your order. And stay hydrated, people, with Bubs Naturals Hydrate or Die. All right, we're going to take a quick break and talk about one of my favorite places that exists on this earth, and that's Woodward Park City. It's fun all seasons. Now, this season is currently mountain bike season, and it's just heating up. They got rad events coming up. They got rebuilt trails, and they got some new multi-week programs for the Groms. Woodward is kicking off some brand new programs for kids as young as 3 years old starting this fall. Get them started early, skateboarding, biking, scootering, or hitting the trampolines with fun 1-hour classes. Also, if you want to sharpen your skills for this winter and learn some tricks on the rollerboard, which is basically a snowboard with roller wheels, you can chuck carcass into the foam pit. You want to learn backflips? Take it to the foam pit first. So then when the snow hits, you're ready to go. Check the details at woodwardparkcity.com and get up there and have yourselves a good time. We almost forgot, Jeremy, that you didn't technically win Name That Video part, but since you didn't get your own video part,
gonna count it.
we are going to give you our Bomb Hole prize pack. It's a Bomb Hole bag that Pashley sent us, a North Face bag. It's good for your gear. You can put boots in there. You can put your boots so you don't forget them and have to wear liners. And there's some Bomb Hole hats in there for the kids or whoever. So yeah, and there's also
that will give me cred at the.
Yeah, I'll give you some street cred.
Yeah.
There's also some probably run through wall smelling salts in there, which
you haven't
we
done
haven't
any.
we haven't hit
No,
one yet.
I don't think so.
Where are you at with that, Jeremy? Are you interested? or-
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never done it, which
Hockey
is those
back,
are my
that's great.
favorite.
Yeah, hockey. Yeah, you know about that from
Yeah.
hockey.
So you're gonna have to teach me.
Okay. Silk. Nice. Okay. So yeah, you just basically these are actually good when I race motocross on the line. This is the one thing I do heavily back and forth. So I grab them, break it, or you can just pinch it in the middle. Pinch it in the middle is probably the easiest. And then you just work it up to your there it goes.
Oh my God.
Woo! Oh. Wow.
Okay, so question. Do you think that would help right before you drop in on like a really spicy line?
Yeah.
Are you feeling focused?
Yeah, I think I'd go in a little lighter next time.
Yeah, we're doing some research, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to
feedback.
fall asleep,
Yep.
but I do like it.
Yeah, that's what I got to send some to Nick, send some to you. You know, all the Shralpinists, and I would love to see a new Shralpinist market.
Yeah,
you get right, and the weight is good.
Yeah, you can put a lot of these in the pack.
Just keep it right in the waistband for
when you're as you use the term schlogging when you're schlogging along approach. You know, you need a little something. Boom,
there you go,
right there.
You can just ration a Cliff Bar. You just sniff a couple of those.
Yeah.
What's your splitboard tech? Because Griff is he's like a sprinter. I feel like you're
bad. Probably. I've heard he likes to go slow.
Yeah, I'm a slow and steady guy.
You and I could hang out. I'd say the most common comment I get from people is after touring with them is, "I thought you'd be faster." But what you don't realize is. I run the all day, every day pace, and I want to always have room in the tank in case I see something nice on the way out that for an extra lap. Run the sweat you die, so I never want to break a sweat. And but no, I could up my pace a little bit.
Yeah. But the banter is hard when you start upping the pace. You're kind of winded.
It's true.
It's hard to carry a good conversation.
Here, there's so many people. It's maybe like I don't know why it happens, but
yeah,
I've definitely bonked. I've gone too much,
powder
too
panic,
quick, and then
powder
I'm
panic,
dying.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can go into that higher gear. I just know that I'll feel it the next day more.
I'm more curious. Like, what's your go-to energy? Food. What's the secret weapon? You gotta hike Mount Timlin.
Timlin.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean at those scenarios, I would be on the preload, be dialed, and then it's some type of shot block type thing. Electrolyte water. It's kind of a water enhancer, so it takes. You got electrolyte in your water, and that 12 ounces of water has the benefit of, say, 16 ounces. I definitely go water heavy, food heavy.
A lot of people smash candy out there, right? Like get the sugar.
Candy's good. Yeah, if you're moving, smashing candy's good. I run trail mixes, basically. I'll have a sweeter trail mix, and I'll have a salty trail mix, and gels. That's the basic.
Okay. Lighten the pack.
Okay, keep the pack light. Forget your poles.
This is a good one. Blake Paul will love this because we have a joke. Whether it's like you go early in the morning, it's like pancakes or eggs on the griddle, and then when you go like so early, there's this video. I think you're eating like blueberries on toast. So we're like, damn, we going blueberries on toast tomorrow? Like, how early we going?
Well, that is my nickname. One of my many nicknames is Berry Toast because I actually that is my breakfast. Peanut butter on toast with berries.
Nice.
See, we're getting all the insider trading info right now. Well, as one avid Shralpinist to another, I would love to talk about The Art of Shralpinism. Fantastic book for those who haven't read it. We have it here. And we talked about possibly doing a reading.
Yeah, I'm going to do what I would assume would be a world first, which is do a reading.
Let's tee it up.
Yeah, people are always surprised to see a snowboarder read. And so, yeah, the book Art of Shralpinism is so much of experience, mistakes made that led to, it's like my protocol in the mountains, but the mental side of the mountains to me is such a huge component of it. So I think about the book as a nice enhancement to the more scientific AVI class type stuff, because how do smart people make bad decisions in the mountains? There is that's the stuff that keeps me up at night. But here's an example of this is called "The Mountains Are Whispering to Us." So world first, a snowboarder reading from a book they wrote. Brainwaves and senses wide open and alert to pick up the words, moods, and lights the mountains are whispering to us. At first, our minds are cluttered and noisy. We struggle to hear their whispers. With patience and openness, we start a conversation. What are they telling us? Agendas and egos muddle their words. An open and quiet mind, coupled with low expectations and acceptance of the mountains, is the key to a long life dancing in these untamed and unruly environments. Understanding when to dig in and push through the hard times, to be totally committed to a goal, charging into the dark unknown past your comfort zone and past the boogeyman, but just as easily turning your back on the goal without hesitation when the door gets slammed shut. That is the dance. That is Shralpinism.
Wow.
Beauty.
I got to ask, like, when you've had a few books now, is this the second or third?
Second book, yeah.
When did you decide you were going to, like, write a book, and kind of how did that come up?
Well, I've always kept a journal as just a way of kind of clearing my brain, not thinking, I'll go back and do anything with that. Just as my dad would say, and same with art. I always do art and stuff, but it's about the process, not the outcome. And it's, writing and doing art gets you on, as he would say, get on the other side of your brain and let it take you for a ride. So it's nice to exercise that other side. But yeah, it kind of slowly came about. I got to be friends with Kate Rogers from Mountaineers Books back in trade show days. And because I'd love to read, I read every day, and I've read so many of those books, and we just got talking about our love of books and writing, and she's like, oh, I'd love to see your writing sometime. And I sent her some stuff, and she said, you should do a book. And I kind of brushed that away for a couple of years, and then finally was like, all right, let's do it. Because I do feel as COVID hit and we saw this huge increase of AVI courses, I saw what I felt was this void in the teachings, which is the mental side of things. And I'm like, man, I think I could write this book that would be the perfect complement to avalanche classes.
Cool. Very, very cool. So talking about books, I talk about books on the show sometimes, whatever, but people will send me messages like, you should do a bomb hole book club. What books are you reading? I even have I have like a copy paste thing in my messages. I've been asked so many times about books that I like have it ready to go at any time. And as an avid reader and a snowboard philosopher, I would say you do have, philosophy about your time in the mountains. What are some of your favorite all-time reads?
Well, I'm looking at what I would consider the ultimate snowboard book, The Darkest White. Have you guys read that?
So good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone that's listening to this, I'm jealous if you haven't read it, because you get to read it, and totally. I would love to have that. And then there's The Edge of Never, the Marcus of Freddie book, is a little more misty, but also an incredible snowboard book about Marco disappeared off of Everest. Last seen, horns in the air, dropping off the North Face in powder at sunset, never to be seen again. Still a mystery what happened to him. Travis Rice gave me a great book, or I read on a trip with him, Rules for Becoming a Knight. I've gifted that book more than anyone, especially now these, my kids' friends, they're all going off to college and stuff. So that's a no-brainer. Have you ever read that book?
I've never even heard of it.
So that's what I would call a morning book, where I like to ease into the day with, you read like 1, 2, 3 pages of that, and just with your coffee, and kind of sets your head for the day. Reading a book right now called The Wager, which is a nautical book. But
what's your genre that interests you?
I mean, all over the map, really. But I would say more nonfiction than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yep, same. Awesome.
I feel like a lot of those downtimes on those trips, being in a tent, probably also did help to, like, maybe I will write a book, or like have you slow down to collect your thoughts. And I'm sure you're burning through books in your tent, I would assume.
Yeah, we're definitely burning through books, and that's where I'm really writing the most. And so, like, this is a notebook that I'll always have a notebook with me in the mountains. I have a shitty memory, and I have to write that stuff down, and that's really, all my ideas come in the mountains. I can't go and sit in front of a computer and be like, oh, I got a new idea for a snowboard or a movie or a book or a graphic or anything. It's all mountain based. And so I am a devout member of the Church of the 7-Day Recreationalists. And I make a point, even this morning, I got up early and just went for a walk around the city and just got moving and tried to find a cool looking tree and saw some great graffiti art and had a great, half-hour walk this morning.
Cool. And then I think it would be interesting to talk about how you took the train here, your mode of transportation. Generally, people would fly or drive. I've never taken a train more than just around a city. But my question to you would be, like, what were you doing on the train? Were you doing the same thing, reading and journaling while you're on your ride here?
Yeah, I mean, the train is so relaxing. I do it a lot in Europe, and some of the train comes right through Truckee, and certain like it just lined up well to come here. And so reading and writing and sleeping. I mean, I was probably in bed asleep by 9 o'clock. Like the train lulls you to sleep, which is nice.
So yesterday, when I was doing my research, I stumbled upon a video I hadn't ever seen called Purple Mountains. I thought it was freaking awesome. What drove you to start and describe what that movie is and then why you did it?
Yeah, so Purple Mountains was I think the hardest movie I've ever made, and it stemmed from my involvement with climate, and so I started Protect Our Winters. I think 2008, and with the simple goal of uniting the outdoor industry to come together and act on climate, to be a powerful group that says we want action on climate. And when Protect Our Winters started, clean air, clean water, and a healthy planet was a very non-divisive issue. Everyone agreed on that. And due to various reasons, by purpose, really, it became a divisive issue, which is now, unfortunately, on the Mount Rushmore of identity politics, which is the last place you want your issue to end up. And so Purple Mountains is my journey to hang out with these outdoor-loving people and find common ground around our love for the outdoors, and then understand why we are, why they're voting for politicians that have 100% success ratio of voting against any and all climate policy. And why climate policy is so important is from the get-go of starting Protect Our Winters, science has been our compass. We've said it's from the start, it's going to scientists. Hey, I know I can rally the outdoor community. What do? Oh, we need policy. We have the solutions, but we're not going to get them on the scale that we need to reduce CO2 without policy. To get policy means our elected officials need to be on it. So yes, this movie is my journey of hanging out with these people, and it's a very tough film.
Yeah, I think even to back it up before, we could even start with Protect Our Winters and founding that and the driving force behind that.
Yeah, so Protect Our Winters, I was seeing changes to the mountains. It was coinciding with what scientists were saying. When I was at Rosignol, one example would be I spent a lot of time in France, and in Chamonix, you can go. Have you ever been? You've never been out of the country.
I've been to Chamonix.
Yeah. Have you been down the Valley Blanche?
I haven't, no. I've only rode that resort across the way.
So kind of the most famous run in Chamonix is the Valley Blanche, and they've been in those mountains for a really long time. So just human records of marking where they put a mark on the ground where the glacier was, dating back to the 1800s. And so you ride your snowboard, and then you have to walk this trail, and then now you have to take a chairlift to get to the train station to take you back to town. And so you can look at those marks every year of where the glacier was, and sure, it was been receding, but it was very small, receding very little. And then you start hitting the 1990s into 2000, and those marks get really long, and so it's just yet another example of change that's happening in the mountains, and the scientists again like leading the way, going, look, we can early on at Protect Our Winters, we're going, drink out of a water bottle, and all important basic Eco 101 stuff, but they're like, that is not going to change climate change. We need policy. And unfortunately, that puts us on Capitol Hill. I've talked to Congress and Senate a bunch. We have a POW bill right now in Congress that is stalled out due to the current quagmire of our politics in the U.S. right now.
How was it going from a guy that's just known for sliding the snowboard down a hill to just be sitting in Washington in a suit? And how is that journey? Just a whole different whirlwind. Yeah, it's overwhelming, but it's also, you realize how the government works, and it's everyday people. Yeah. You're like, dude, you might be the senator, but you are just a normal person that has big dreams and worked hard to get here. And then you see, so at Protect Our Winters, the power of a movement. So we have the doors open when we go there, because we represent so many people, and they know that we have influence, and so we have great access. When we go there, we spend 90% of our time is with moderate Republicans, because those, though, if we can get one of those people to take a good vote for clean air and clean water, we can achieve our goals. The margins are so slim, and so understandably, people are like, man, Protect Our Winters, you just keep telling me to vote, and you gotten all political, and it's just a bummer. But we just passed, or the U.S. government passed the biggest climate policy in the world, and it got passed by the smallest margin. And you can go to Western Colorado Congressional District 112, and that won by 100 votes. You lose that one election, there's no climate policy. And so that's where we focus. Why it's called Purple Mountains is we focus on the purple states, where a couple 100,000 votes could make the difference. And I think I'm not a confrontational person, so it's easy for me to find common ground amongst people. I make a point. We've become so divided in America. I really make a point that I don't lose friends over their political stance, even though it breaks my heart that they're unfortunately not by their choice, but their ideology is Republican, which is fine, but unfortunately that means they're voting against climate policy. But to really get out of the echo chamber, and that's what Purple Mountains is an example of that.
Cool. It's cool. I think just you going out there, it's not necessarily you saw these things. It's not like you're trying to get into politics. That was probably never your goal, but you opened this door. Like, I've gotten to go with Protect Our Winters to Capitol Hill. One of the craziest things I've just to see the government work from the inside out. But then even having someone like Caroline Gleicher, who's running for senator, that never would have happened probably if you didn't decide to hey, I'm gonna speak up about this. So
yeah, I don't know, but Caroline, it's so impressive seeing. I mean, it's.
But definitely, obviously, she fueled that, but that was just a little kindle to the fire, It was just
Yeah, I mean, for our government to work, democracy requires participation, and so If I can just send one message out to your audience is just get out and vote, get your friends to vote. It's very simple. If you want a voter guide, we got it at POW, but I don't just vote, and so much of that we just need to get out the vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jeremy, I got a question real quick. How much of snowboarding do you think plays a role into your beliefs in climate change? Not beliefs, but like your passion behind it. And how much of like your specific niche in snowboarding, being like a big mountain rider, like, do you think it would have been different if you were doing different types of riding? Because we see so many big mountain riders come on the show and they often talk about climate change and the politics that is ingrained with it now. So like, where do you think that comes from? And like, do you think it'd be different if you were doing different types of riding?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to do the type of snowboarding I do requires a intimate relationship with the mountains and winter and being really attuned to the shape of the mountains and just all things snow and ice and yeah, I mean, at the heart of it, the last thing I really wanted to do, POW backing up started with I had my name on a bunch of products at Rosignol, and I wanted to take a percentage of the royalties and send it to a group working on climate change. And I call my buddy who was at Surfrider Foundation. I'm like, hey, where do I send my check to? And he gets back to me a week later, and he's like, you need to start an organization. And I'm like, that is the last thing I want to do. And for 2 years, I'm like, I am not doing it. And then finally, kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, I was in Terrace or Prince Rupert, British Columbia, and it was February, and it was bad weather, and I was hiking the local ski hill there, and I'd gotten to be friends with some locals who were in their 30s at the time, and we're walking, and it's all grass, and they're pointing out their kicker here, and their the warming hut, and telling me about the cookies, and it's all closed down, and at this point, I'd been reading a lot about climate. I was seeing these changes I talked about, and then I go to them, I said, well, why isn't the resort open anymore? And they're like, we just don't get snow here anymore. And I was like, fuck, these guys are in their 30s and they've lost their home mountain. And at that time, it wasn't right in front of our face. And I'm like, man, what's going to happen, in the next 30 years? Am I going to lose my home mountain? Like, that would be so devastating to me. And so that kind of started me down that trail.
I want to say I commend you so much on the approach from a human nature aspect of this thing, because it's just, the divisiveness is the fucking worst thing about politics. It fucking sucks, dude. And to be able to say, hey, you lean more towards this conservative perspective due to the environment that you were raised in and due to your community and due to whatever factors, and I lean this way. Let's have a conversation and see what we have in common. And that to me is the change. That is the change that needs to happen, in the sense the opposite of like, you don't believe what I believe, you're bad. From whatever side. It's coming both directions.
Oh yeah.
And so like that sometimes for me makes me just want to be like, I don't fucking want to have anything to do with this. You guys are being crazy. Like, and I love the perspective of like, no, like politics doesn't have to be this like you're bad thing,
We're all humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you really got to, we're in this great experiment. Democracy is an experiment in the grand scheme of society, and the $1 billion square that's in our pocket, or rectangle in our pocket, that's new to society. And so I guess I would just leave it with being really cognizant, especially of the consumption of media. Like, you don't need to be watching news all day, every day, and just hate scrolling on your phone. And every time you pick that $1 billion device up, they're doing everything they can to keep you coming back. The smartest engineers in the world want you keep coming back, and they know that anger gets you coming back more. So I would say to everyone, make sure you unplug and as the world, and it's only going to get angrier on that phone as it
unfortunately
just like do your work on yourself on the daily, or you will turn into the raging radical jerk no matter what side you're on.
Yeah. Cool. That's some of the wisest stuff that's ever been said on this show. I love that. And that's cool talking to a lot of your friends and stuff. They're like hard to get a hold of Jeremy. He usually doesn't have his phone on him. And that's should be a good thing. Like we should be celebrating that, because it is a hard thing to get away from. It's addictive. 100%.
Especially for you. I mean, you own a business. It's like there's so many things that you need to call to, but just to know when to like set that aside. Balance.
And I want to announce something really exciting. You brought some posters. They're massive. I don't know what the size. These things are like 24, but I'm not even going to 36 inches by 24, something huge. I don't know what they are, but you're going to sign them, and we are going to put them for sale on our site. And then all of the money that is raised from you guys buying these signed posters is going to go to protect our winners. They're going to sell out really fast, so make sure you guys get them ASAP, and the money goes to a good cause. And for the listeners, describe the photo if they're not watching.
Yeah, so it's a Seth Lightcap photo, who's the master Shralpinist himself. I think possibly the longest running Jones employee. And it's from the Wall of Walls, which is my second foot-powered Alaska trip, shooting the film Deeper. It's in Glacier Bay National Park, and it is a monumental moment in my life because I had this dream with the foot-powered snowboarding that I felt like I was getting held back by machines, and that if I could figure out how to climb these lines, I had so many more to choose from because you can only take machines to such a small portion of the ranges. And our first year out in Alaska, we dabbled into some decent lines, but the Wall of Walls, to this day, I still consider it the best face that I've ridden. And yeah, so this is a shot of me. It's like day 21 in Alaska and ripping this line. You'll see Ryland Bell's track in the rider's right. And yeah, it's a nice, as you said, it's a big photo, which does it justice. And so, yeah, you're going to be stoked.
I've always heard this term. I have no idea who, maybe from Shad, Taylor Carlton probably. I've heard of the elusive eastern winds. Yes. When you film your best turns. So if you'd like to elaborate on the eastern winds.
Well, I don't, you're going to have to give me a little more context because the east wind traditionally...
in Tahoe, I think this is the context.
Yeah. But the east wind in Tahoe does, it wrecks the snow. Because our main aspect we focus on is northeast aspect in Tahoe. So the east wind crushes our faces, but if you can get them early before they've stripped all the pow off, then yes, the sprays are flying.
Nice. I've just always heard like eastern winds.
Kind of like it's like offshore when you're surfing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Same deal. And yeah, big surfer. Okay, we're going to get into some Patreon questions. This Patreon question is brought to you by Nidaker Snowboards and Craig McMorris. Let's tee it up, Craig.
Hey everyone, Craig McMorris here, back with Nidaker Snowboards. We are giving away boots for our favorite Patreon questions. Today, the CAPiTA boot, external heel lock. This is the boot I ride for everything. Locks in my heel. I love this boot, as I love this guest, Jeremy Jones. The question for you is from Keen Meeks. Congratulations, Keen Meeks. You win a pair of Nidaker snowboard boots. The question, Jeremy, what inspired the collab with Chris Christensen? Looking forward to the answer.
Oh, great question. I love that because that's been such a fun thing. Chris Christensen is a really talented surf shaper, shapes a lot of different types of surfboards, from big wave guns to high performance, everything in between. And I had, on happenstance, ran into Chris in Cardiff, California, camping there, and started talking about what properties from a surfboard could be brought into a snowboard. And because if you think about with surfing, do any of you guys surf?
Yes.
You surf, yeah. So you know right away if your surfboard is got drag to it, so to speak. So you're not catching waves, you're not making sections, da-da-da-da. And on the contrary, a snowboard, when you can have a snowboard that doesn't glide that well, and you won't even really know it. You get off the snowbird tram, you're cranking down the mountain, you're getting to the bottom, no big deal. But I have always felt that we could get cleaner gliding snowboards, and the benefit of a cleaner gliding snowboard is it will take low angle powder, and it's almost like it adds 10 degrees to it. So I became like obsessed with that idea. So to meet Chris was so exciting, and instantly we clicked. And at that point, I knew Chris made cool surfboards. I didn't realize that he is the master of making the fastest gliding surfboards in the world. Next morning, he shows up with this Ocean Racer 5.0, dead flat, wide surfboard. I'm like, what is this? And get on. I'm like, oh my God, I'm making sections, da-da-da-da. You know, comes back again with a 10.0 glider, which is this dead flat, narrow, thick board that turns what I would call double over ankle into really fun surf, you know, these small waves with a ton of glide. And so I'm like, well, let's shape I want to shape a pow surfer with you, utilizing your same bottom contours and rocker and all that stuff. So we go to a shaping bay and we shape this board. I get it on snow, and the thing is just flying. It is a rocket ship. And then from there I go, well, let's think about one with bindings. We're going to make a pow board. And so we go, again, Chris shapes this board in his shaping bay, utilizing, it's all templates and stuff that are some of them are passed down from Skip Fry, who's the legendary shaper and stuff. So it's about the ultimate curves. And if you, like that if you look at Chris's stuff, there's no flat spots anywhere. I mean, there is not a 3 millimeter flat spot. Flat spots are slow. It's bad shaping, da-da-da-da. So anyways, we get this board and with bindings, and I get on it and I'm like, oh my God, this thing is incredible. It's called the Storm Chaser. That leads me to make this movie called Life of Glide, which it was funny when I was watching Higher at the base of Palisades in my community. I'm in way back up on the mountain looking down by myself, watching the Himalaya section. And I'm watching that thing and I go, next movie I make is right here, like side of the road under the chairlift. I just got done selling you have to go to the Himalayas to go get rad. So Chris and I's story, we're a couple of years in, we make this film, Life of Glide. It's on YouTube. It's still my favorite movie that I've made. It's not on your list.
I'm sorry, that's a bad list.
That one's
Jeremy.
on my mental list. I love that.
I did bad research. Yeah.
But that dives into the whole Chris thing. But what that does is it's friction-free snowboarding. And so now, for example, there's a zone in Palisades near Red Dog with this awesome gully, and so many times I'll roll in there and you actually don't want to be the first person in there because you need a track to get speed. And I'm bogging looking at where I wish I could be. And now we have these Christensen surf series. Now it's a series of boards that gives you the float and the glide to then take your snowboard where you normally couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Personally, I've ridden the Storm Chaser. Yeah, Borrowed Forest before. And just like the entry out of the turn feels so good. And then I have a Chris surfboard, and it was like an instant. that feeling where I was like, whoa, I've been on shitty surfboards. Not that good, but you could feel the speed for sure.
Kid's bagging lefts, though. He's bagging lefts.
I like to go left.
Well, and so we worked this whole, as you said, the entry point and these spoon noses and what that allows you to do, because traditionally if you go wide, we all know this, it's like so hard to get on edge. It's like tip it over, make the turn. It's like you're coming about. And by bringing the spoon into the entry, you can have a wide board, but it rolls really well and it doesn't have the negative side of a wide board.
What about on hard pack?
That's where it shines the best.
That was the trip out of all of it is, and that's the beauty of exploration is it works so good on smooth hard pack because you can roll it over and get like layout really like on the ground type Euro carves type stuff.
Cool. That's super interesting. Yeah, the new shape stuff's getting really fun in snowboarding.
We're moving into the Z dimension, the 3D.
Dude, it's coming from a person that's getting older that still loves riding the park, and I see my friends and they're like, dude, you got to go carve or whatever, and I make fun of it. I'm just like, dude, fucking, you guys are overselling the carve, guys. But I'm riding a twin park board. Mm-hmm. But I set up recently, last winter the past 2 winters, started messing around with more of a directional, like I got some of the fun shape, aggressive side cut. And it is like on the groomers, you're just like, holy shit, I get it. I get why these people are talking about it. It's fun as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, turn mundane magical. You can do that with equipment. You can do that for sure surfing.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah.
You can stoked on like tiny waves.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting thinking about the border cross boards though, like that are just like flat planks,
rectangles
that are just and hard boots, and they're digging trenches too.
Do they go hard? I don't think they go hard boots.
Or I guess maybe I'm thinking of like just racing slalom.
I've never ridden the hard boot board. You should make a Jones
race board. Well, we do have this board called the Free Carver, which is we take the properties of a race board, but it's wider, so you ride it in soft boots, and that board. And that was one of those when I first got my hands on it, I'm like, we went too far. Like, this is ridiculous. Then I'd like sneaking it up the mountain so nobody sees it. And I got on the thing and just couldn't believe how well it turned. And now this board that I thought was this really niche thing that looks really crazy I've ridden that board more than any board the last year.
Love that. Cool. What would be like a race property, like a longer side cut?
Yeah, longer, full camber, like
Stiff
a lot
as a
of.
board.
No, it's not. Again, that's where it's got a lot of camber, but it's soft camber, and then big side cut, and then we purposely made it wide because we didn't want people booting out on it.
That's the worst feeling.
We got a good question about hard boots on our Patreon, Silk, from Nathan Pascal.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan, for submitting your question.
Also, can we just talk about how good Silk's radio voice is? He turns on.
It is good.
It really is.
Just my regular voice.
It's really soothing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This next one's from Nathan. In the splitboarding community, hard boots are becoming increasingly more popular. Tell us why you don't rock them and why soft boots will always be king.
Well,
sounds pretty good.
First of all, I would never say I'm always going to do anything, meaning I currently do not rock hard boots. I do own hard boots, and we have a joke, no disrespect, but how do you know if someone's a splitboarding hard booter? Wait 3 seconds and they'll tell you.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to think about it, but I think I've spent at least 2,000 days in hard boots in my life. So I'm well versed in hard boots, but I really like the ankle agility of things. And mind you, I have tinkered around with hard boots and really taken the rigidity out of them. But the biggest reason why is when you hit a bump on hard boots, that goes straight into your skeletal system. So I've had friends that were hard boot disciples, and after 8 years, they're like, dude, it's killing my knees. It's hurting my hips. And that's the big problem right now with the hard boots is you actually need to build some slop in. So when you hit that chatter, it actually dissipates by the time it gets to your foot. And right now it's just a beeline right to the sole of that hard boot, right into your bindings, right into your bones. And so I'm just sore at the end of the day with hard boots.
Mm-hmm. And we've got to know each other at these 32 sales meetings, and you have a boot with 32, obviously. And dude, you put a lot of time and effort into getting that boot to where it is right now, and all the little, the adjustable heel thing for touring mode, and I guess you have a couple different models, right?
Yeah, and that at the heart of it, I'm super satisfied with my boots. I have a little crampon welt on them, so I haven't lost a crampon since I've done that. That used to be a big problem, as crampons were slipping off our boots, and always where you don't want them to slip off your boots. I remember one icy knife edge ridge, my crampon came off 9 times. And they only come off where you don't want them to come off. But and then I have touring mode on my boots, and they're comfortable, and I'm super satisfied with my boot binding combo right now.
Explain touring mode, because I think for anybody listening that Splittboards that doesn't know about the touring mode, it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. Also, a way to kind of hurt your knees is if you're in a snowboard boot and say walking on flats, you really feel the high back of the back of the boot, that forward lean, which is important when you're riding. So, what I have done with my boot is there's a touring mode, so I can take off that forward lean, and you get a full stride, and that really saves your knees, because if you are walking for a long period of time with forward lean, it tweaks your knees.
Yeah, a 1 hour tour up the Sats, you might not notice a huge difference, but when you're going,
further higher.
Deeper, further higher to the Himalayas,
DFH.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yep.
My one thing is, how long do you go on like a pair of boots? Because I find Splittboarding destroys them.
The great question, because I get yelled at for not changing my boots enough, because they are built to last. So I'll go 2 seasons on boots until Brian Cook calls and yells that I'm not on the right boot.
Another good one would be, now you're basically almost in a role of team manager. You're probably not the actual team manager of your own company, and you had so many role models in that position. How do you see it now? Is there certain athletes and riders that you're really stoked on currently on Jones? And how do you see it moving forward?
Yeah. So before I get into that, I do want to give another pro tip to your audience on boots. The trick to changing out boots is you never change the boot and the liner at the same time. Yes. So new liner, old outer, vice versa. Anyway, so yes, having at Jones, it's really, I've had so much fun on all facets of Jones Snowboards, from the people I work with and the riders. I really think about it as a family. There's a lot of natural mentorship happening between the young and the old, and God, I mean, it's kind of, your question's like asking a favorite kid to pick. So I really, we try to bring a diversity of people and approach, but at the heart of it is really good, solid people that are good community members. And this is one of the things I was thinking about from a pro snowboarding perspective. What's the one common thread between all pro snowboarders?
Fun to hang out with?
They're cool people. They're nice people. Why is that? Because the team manager has so much control on who gets the raise and who doesn't, and they want to help nice people. It's not, there's so few, the only way you can be a pro snowboarder and be a total asshole is if you are just hands down the best in the world. Otherwise, to become a pro, you need the help of so many people to get there. Mm-hmm. So my kids will meet a pro and they're, oh my God, he's so cool, or she's so awesome. Like, they all are. You need to be. You're not going to get there if you're a jerk.
For sure.
Good point. That was actually, that was something talking to Jim Zeller. He's like, I'm curious about, his role as a team manager. What does he look for when he's looking for, talent? What are the ingredients that make somebody a great pro snowboarder, somebody that they want to sign for Jones? Sounds like you just answered it. But.
Well, the other like key tenet is this deep love of snowboarding that doesn't matter what the conditions are like, can go out and find real joy in snowboarding. Because at the end of the day, we've all been around riders who it's all about getting the shot. As soon as cameras go away, they go away. And who's out there just that embodies the spirit? And then I think a little bit different with Jones is we really value community. And so having riders that are good role models in their mountain communities.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
That is great.
It all starts with the community.
It's true.
Yeah, that's great.
Don't be a dick.
Okay, I'm going to change gears into something I'm wondering. So your name is Jeremy Jones. There also is a very, very notable pro snowboarder named Jeremy Jones. Now, when we had Jeremy on years ago, he shared some funny stories about people mistaking him for you. Do you have any funny stories that come to mind about being mistaken for him?
Well, I don't know if I have funny, like, out there stories, but it's definitely over the years has been a common, I know exactly what he's talking about. And I don't think that's a one-way street. Yeah. And I've known him for, since he was probably 18 years old, and obviously, just huge respect for his riding and as a human. And so with that comes, if I get mistaken for him, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's got to be a pain in the ass when you're like, I'm coming up, you're coming up as a pro snowboarder. You're like, with Jeremy Jones, which one? What are you talking about? No, there's another guy with your same name. He's really fucking good too.
And it will, some people it could throw off. And so if I'm like, on a chairlift with them, I'll take the time to explain that. But a lot of it is like, oh, glad you like it. Glad you like my forearm part or whatever.
Yeah. Love your part in True Life. You're like, thank you. I worked very hard.
I got
on
a question. When's the last time you've hit some steel?
Yeah.
Oh,
are you turning around it, or are you maybe bonking?
Yeah. No, I'm bonk. I'm kind of, if you think of like, I'll throw like if there's a hip type scenario with a tube or whatever, the ollie bonk, like cross court. I'm not going.
He's a bonk guy.
I'm a bonk guy.
The thing I noticed though, I'm watching all these clips, you're front boarding all these spines. Like you're literally front boarding down the goddamn spine. I'm like, this guy's got a mean front board. Dude. Like throw that thing out on the steel.
He's got a back lip with an ice axe.
Yeah. Yeah. Front board's there. The form is impeccable on the front board.
I am proud. I was up at Hood this summer, and it was so nice to have, they had some really nice half pipes that were, they're probably 18 foot tall with like 6 inches of vert.
Perfect type.
Soft but edgeable, and I'm like, wow, I'm getting over the lip for the first time in a long time.
Yep.
So that was my freestyle highlight of the year.
Okay, we got a guest question. This is from none other than Elena Height. Here we go.
Hey, Jeremy. It's Elena calling in. And my question for you today is, we recently got back from an epic trip in Norway, and I was so impressed. I actually have never seen you ride so hard and fast and rip in person, only on film, as you were in Norway. And so my question is after all of these years professional snowboarding, do you think that you're still getting better? And was there a plateau that you had to break through to continue to progress?
Well, that was a nice compliment. And I'm going to answer that question, but I have a great story about Elena that we should come back to. But yeah, I mean, as far as breaking through progression, I mean, I realized a bit ago that for me, my snowboard is a tool to connect with nature, to be present, and that sounds real wooey, what have you. But in that sense, I am really progressing, like just getting more out of less in the mountains, and I'm so grateful for that, and to have health and to have snow on the ground. And then when when conditions really do line up, I'm just so stoked just to be there. And I am in this really fun stage of snowboarding where my livelihood is not based off of video parts as it was for a really long time. And but in Norway, we were there with Antti Auti, who's got his Arctic Lines series, which is incredible if anyone's looking for proper Arctic Shralpinism. Antti's been a Jones rider for a long time, as well as Mika Hast. And it was funny, he was like, I'll re-sign with Jones if Jeremy comes on a trip with me. And I was like, sweet. Reason, I try to do 90% of my snowboarding is Sierra based, but I'm like, okay, I guess if he needs me to go there, I can go there. And, and so this year, those mountains, they were so big and multi, angles to them. So these huge sections where you'd have a open bowl on one aspect, then it would corkscrew into a tight chute, into this big chute, and then hook a third right, and then you get into another wider deal or what have you. So it was really big, rippable terrain, but to really nail your lines, you had to be flowing through all these blind rollovers and take the third entry into this other section. And so it was really fun. And I do, it was an area where I don't get many wins in my snowboarding in the sense where I'm like, well, I think I'm rode that line better than I would have 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And there were a couple lines in Norway where I definitely did get really locked in on just nailing these technical lines with tons of blind spots and moving through them really smooth. And then with the size of the lines and the way the snow was, there was a ton of slough moving on a lot of them. So your slough management plan had to be really dialed. And so, yeah, it was really complex riding, but we were blessed with really good weather. And I think
rare for up there.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had 17 days on snow or something, and the mountains are huge. I mean, the way we had really good stability, which was sweet. But with stability, I was saying the older I get, the older I like my snow. And so with that means the bottom third was like proper bulletproof ice. And then the upper third was optimal kind of boot top powder. And then the middle zone was transitional. But yeah, it was cool to ride, to like drill these 2,000, 3,000 foot lines, because I just haven't done that in a long time.
Was it the Lingen Alps, or were you in the
Yeah, we're in the Lingen Alps.
Cool.
And you said you had a story about Elena as well.
Yeah, so Elena, I've done a lot of trips with Elena, and when I first I met Elena right before her last Olympics, and I'd known about her. I'd maybe seen her somewhere, but we were at the Cliff Bar office, and it was in the fall, and it was an Olympic year. And I said we were both waiting for a ride, waiting for an Uber to go our separate ways. And I said, when this whole Olympic thing is over, we should get out and splitboard. And in my mind, I was like, she's going to need that no matter if she wins or she doesn't do well. Like that's going to be good medicine for her. She had a tough Olympic year. She couldn't land her best trick, didn't go to the Olympics. And come spring, I said, hey, Elena, how's it going? Let's go. I want to do this splitboard trip. You should come. And she's like, okay. And the trip was a traverse of the Sierra, which I didn't tell her. And she kept asking questions. So what's the deal? I'm like, well, it's going to be like 5, 6, 7 days. I don't know. Just get a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad, and we got everything else for you. And she kept asking about the trip. And so the trip ended up being this 9-day trip, the hardest trip foot power trip I've ever done. And where on the first day we have such heavy packs that we actually have to, we do this like portering of our gear to get out in the first camp. And we go and climb this mini pinner, it's called, which is a 4,000 foot chute. And she's never been in crampons, never had an ice axe in her hand. And she's climbing this thing, and it's as technical of a line as you're going to get in the Sierra, like proper Shralpinism. And like, how's it going? I'm fine. I'm fine. I mean, everything was, I'm fine. And then I'm like, you want to go first? How do you want to do this? She's like, I'm good. And anyways, climbs it like it's nothing, drops in, rails this line like it's nothing. Chris Vigenshaw, I've been on all these trips with, and Ninja, we're just like, wow, that was good. And then the trip goes on, and we're just like, she doesn't even look tired. Like, what is this woman is just a super freak. And then over time, I'm like, all right, what's the story? And I realized, pro at 12, friggin' new trick that's never been done here. I'm like, oh, I'm dealing with like a super phenom level athlete. I knew she was awesome. I just didn't. I'm like, oh, you're like Shaun White that likes to free ride. Like, you know what I mean?
Totally. Yep.
Which kind of goes, she's a little bit under the radar for what her level of in all facets of snowboarding is, because she's one of the best athletes, the strongest, most unflappable person out there, which is how we ended up doing a lot of trips together.
Mm-hmm. I feel like current line riding, she has like the best board control.
Dude, you take her half pipe riding, and do you take her current big mountain stuff that she's doing? That she's in the conversation for greatest of all time.
Oh yeah,
with like that's named to not be taken lately. Yeah, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, and I mean, just the snowboarding that she's currently, you almost forget about her incredible 15-year competitive career because her
alley-oop back rodeo, double
alley-oop back rodeo.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's the line riding, and then her, just elite level Shralpinism too. I mean, she's so dialed out there, and she's definitely, she's the amount of times I'm like, oh fuck, do you happen to have this? Oh yeah, I got that. Like her
dialed, the
kit, everything is just so dialed.
She's not going Uggs in the
no Uggs. Yeah. So I'm kind of asking this question for a friend, definitely not for myself, but over the years we've been around people shooting powders. I was talking to Andrew Miller, and he was just like, yeah, even if people were riding and it's low angle, he's like, Jeremy's always able to just like smack an amazing pow turn photo. Something that is just elusive to many. Again, asking for a friend, what is the key to a good pow turn photo, or just a good pow turn in general?
Well, the key is to, Danny's been trying to get me to do that. We talk about the turn camp. He's like, I'm first one to sign up.
Yes, yeah, turn camp. Yeah.
For aging gibbers, turn camp.
Turn camp. Where do we learn how to turn?
This should be good.
So here's my theory on turning and pro snowboarders. So what I've realized is pipe riders, you can, with the, move your, because Danny, I remember when he first started coming free riding with us, and we did this incredible traverse, High Sierra Caravan, that's on YouTube, another epic short with Kevin Pierce.
Not on the list, sorry.
That goes in the YouTube short category, but awesome film. But Danny started coming out with Nick and I, splitboarding, and we'd ride these big faces, and he'd look at our tracks and look at his track. He's like, why does my track look like shit? And being that he's a pipe rider and you have to have such good edge control as a pipe rider, you're basically making a World Cup GS turn as you're going up the wall. And so with Danny, we're like, all right, dude, you just hold your turns longer, round them out, do this with your hands. And it was just boom, like, all right, now Danny's got a better turn than all of us. So, he's incredible. It's been way harder. I've watched slope style riders go into free riding and go to Alaska and struggle much more because there's so much room in between features that you have to be able to get there with nice turns. And you can become an incredible slope style rider without ever having to make a turn. You go to Mammoth, the park lift. There's literally now you have park lifts everywhere. And this happened in the late 90s. And so they've never made a turn in their life. So it's not that hard, but you do need to have thought on how to make a turn, and I could definitely.
Can you walk us through this? Like you're coming into a turn. A fat toey, a toey.
So the main thing is the biggest thing people make is they just they don't get, you got to round out your turn. So, start with your toe. A toe is so much easier. Big, long, hold the toe where you almost go back up the hill, and then get on the heel and then hold the heel where you almost go just big round on the green circle groomer. Look, it's in the book. You can look at your track and see when you're carving and when you're not. The number one mistake people make is you have the start of the turn, the initiation. And so you hold on your edge, and then you dive into the start of the turn. And then you come around and, and you get your direction change, ideally in the middle of the fall line, and snap through the bottom of the turn. If you're chattering, which we've all been there, when I'm lazy snowboarding, I'm chattering at the end of my turns. That means I'm lazy on the start of the turn. And I have to give a shout out to Jerry Masterpool and Cross M, my time with them they beat it into my, he was such a intense coach, and we went through, I had 4 years of extreme turn camp.
Cool.
Yeah, we should do this.
Griff, you got it covered in a hard pack turn.
Yeah, you got it, dude. You have it.
The chattering thing's got me tripping.
Yeah.
I appreciate your guys' love, but I chatter all the time.
You ever notice like Nils and Dirksen, also two goofy footers? I feel like I'm thinking of bank slaloms, watching them ride, but they have so much weight on their front foot too.
But then you look at like
about
Temple and Cannon, and they're like back foot heavy.
Yeah, so at the start of the board, it's like front foot to back foot.
Yep.
Front foot to back foot.
So your front of your edge is biting.
Yeah. And you're like folding over the front of the board.
Pushing it to the back foot.
It's like a
and then you move through to the back foot. But yeah, Dirksen and Nils. Dirksen's a great example of my theory of it's hard to go from slope style to good free ride turns. Dirksen's phenomenal.
He's so low. He looks like he's doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it's so smooth. I feel like his time. He looks slow in a bank slalom, and his time will be phenomenal.
Yeah, this is all. I want to sign up for this camp.
Dude,
so
we should actually get this going.
Send it my way.
Should we drive? We could take the train to Tahoe.
Dude, next time we're at the 32 sales meeting.
Yeah, we'll do it.
It's like one run. We'll break it down. We get a little video review. And
I love this.
We're in there.
Bring a directional board with edges too. That'll help.
I will. So the heel turn has been the bane of my existence. The simplest way to help a heel turn is more front and back foot angle.
More
like,
angle.
You go positive, or do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More. And really,
the hips.
And the
and like driving with your backhand through the turn. Like watch Craig Kelly. If you watch his videos, watch his arms and what he's doing, and like the back, how much he drives his backhand through his heel turns.
I also notice how much he uses, like if you watch his old footage, especially at the end in Canada, he rides with such a long tail, and he like is pushing on that thing.
Yeah.
I've like rewatched clips, like he is like using that tail of the snowboard. Because nowadays, a lot of the powder boards, there's no tail.
Yep.
For float, but then you're like, damn, maybe the tail is like the secret.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to stand in one of Craig's actual boards, bindings, the whole kit. And I mean, it was 18 inches wide, stance, tons of angle, tons of cants. Like your knees were stuck together whether you liked it or not.
Crazy.
When in doubt, watch Craig.
That Baker hardcore.
All right, we're going to interrupt this programming to talk about one of my favorite brands, Autumn Headwear. Their motto is Style Matters, and it shows. If you look at their team, they got some of the most stylish riders on the planet. It's rider-owned. This is a brand owned by snowboarders. Brad Alband is the genius behind it. He's done great work over there. And they have great fits on the beanies, most importantly. You know, here at the Bomb Hole, we love what we call a deep resi fit, the reservoir tip, so to speak. So they have the surplus fit, which is kind of a resi. They have the shorty fit, which is shallow. You might catch Silk D wearing one of those. They also have the simple fit that's right in between. And I was just on their website. The apparel is impeccable. So great company, rider owned. If you're interested in getting a great beanie this winter, head on over to autumnheadwear.com and use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off your order, and keep that dome piece looking great with an autumn bonnet. All right, let's take a quick break and talk about Yeti. They got a new cooler. It's called the Roadie 15, and it's perfect for all of your essentials. You can throw it on the front of an ATV, throw it on your paddleboard or a kayak. It's also really light. You can carry it down to your beach, or you can go fishing with it. Great cooler, weighs less than 10 pounds empty. There's also ample space to fit a 12-pack of standard cans with ice. So those bevs stay cold wherever your adventure takes you. They got all types of technology in this thing too. They got the new double duty strap, which means you don't need to use your hands. You can throw it over your shoulder. They got good handles. They got the non-slip feet for the back of your truck. They got a drain plug if you want to hose the thing out if it gets nasty. They got tie-down slots. And the best thing about the Yetis is the permafrost insulation. So they're the best coolers. They keep those bevs ice cold on a hot summer day. Check out their website if you want to learn more about the Yeti Roadie 15. So on this show, we talk a lot about, you know, people that film video parts in the streets and like cheese wedge guys and slope style and half pipe, but there's not that many people in the free ride world that come on our show, unfortunately. Hopefully more. But it seems as though the temperature of the Freeride World Tour, there's a lot of very talented riders, but some of the top people on the tour have hard times like getting sponsors and stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's I mean I would guess it's not just free riders, but at the end of the day, it's like, what's job security for a pro snowboarder? It means that you have influence on a bunch of snowboarders, that you can help move product, that they go, wow, I want to ride your board or your board. And the trick is, how do you go from, say, up-and-comer to that person, and does snowboarding still have that pipeline? And I think that's kind of across the board. Freeriding has always been, been the token freerider on so many companies.
The only one.
Yeah, the only one.
You're at the kids' table.
Yeah, you're like, well, such and such company, they got their one freerider, so they're good, or what have you. So freeriding's always been a bit of an outlier. And job security is that ideally you're moving product, you're you're creating a bunch of content, and it's funny because in some ways these kids will complain, and it was like, man, to be a pro snowboarder when we were around, I don't know if I can call us in the same generation, might be dragging you up a little or down, but you had to get in a mag and you needed video part, and there were only a handful of videos and there were 2 mags, and to get a mag-worthy shot or a video or a shot that was going to make it in the final edit was a mini miracle, basically. And so in many ways, I guess my advice to the kids out there is control your own media. You have to be relevant. You have to be consistently pumping out media. And if you're doing that, and then the companies are starting to utilize that media, then that's how you get job security, and contests can be a part of it. And yeah, it's really hard to make it as a free rider. But that's kind of been a common theme from the beginning.
Yeah. Good point.
How do you see, you probably never competed in free riding, I'm assuming.
I did a little bit. Okay. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, what's interesting is free riding's probably looks like it's going to be in the Olympics.
Like natural selection situation,
no,
or you think
Freeride World Tour?
Really?
Freeride World Tour. Freeride World Tour was bought by FIS, and the thought is it's on this Olympic track.
Got it.
You know, it's kind of an interesting thought, though. I mean, excuse my ignorance with Freeride World Tour stuff, but there's doesn't seem like there's a lot of grassroots free riding events to get into, like competing in free ride. It's like you ride park and stuff when you're younger. There's a million USASAs. Yeah,
so it's a good thing you brought that up. There actually is a thriving junior freeride world tour, and then there's a freeride series that if you win that, then you get a spot on the freeride world tour. So there is a path towards it, and as Zellers points out, there are some kids that are knocking on the door of the Freeride World Tour that have very little support because sponsors just, unfortunately, not a lot of them value free riding.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe we're getting older, or the snowboard, the industry seems to be liking it and accepting it more, or we're just getting older and we're like, wait, this is sweet. I can't tell. You know?
Yeah. I just think it's impressive the way they it'll be pretty subpar conditions, and they're going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the riding is certainly at a high level, and it's, you know, how many people are watching the events, and I mean it's the same story that plays out every generation. It's hard. It's hard to make a living snowboarding. It's for the upper echelon, and same with skating, surfing, all of it. And I do think that in some ways social media has made it easier, and in some ways it's made it harder.
Totally.
Yeah, we had a good one. It was just a video part and some photos in a mag, though. I think that was the glory days.
Kick the feet up.
Yeah. All right. Again, Jeremy, sorry for the list of video parts. That was fucking bad. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. There's so many.
Wikipedia.
Well, I was watching all of them. I was watching it as much as I could, and then Wikipedia had this subpar list of a measly 36 parts when there's like fucking 90. So
hey, at least like the resistance and something in there.
It wasn't like
some of the other jams.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into hot takes here. We like to ask on this show, who is in your opinion, to you, the greatest of all time snowboarder, both male and female?
Whoa, I probably should have been trained. You know,
I didn't brief you on this.
You didn't brief me on this. God, I mean, I think that there's so many factors generationally. I think that for me, watching Craig's path through all facets of snowboarding was a really impactful thing for me. And to the point, I had a writer from Backcountry magazine on the 10-year anniversary of Craig's death asked me, he's like, where do you think snowboarding would be if Craig was still around? And it was kind of a a shocking question when I thought about that, and specifically splitboarding. Like splitboarding was totally on this rise. Craig passed away, and it just like all the wind went out of those sails. And so, absolutely, if Craig was around, the splitboarding boom I think would have happened way sooner. And then from a women perspective, God, I mean, I've definitely. It's wild looking back from the Julie Zells, Victoria Jalouse. I've had an opportunity, Tina Bassich, Cersei Wallace, to ride with some incredible women. And then at the Jones team, we have so many real rippers. But I've been really impressed with Elena's ability, her background in freestyle, doing a trick in the half pipe nobody's ever landed before, to what she's done at the natural selection, to her proper real deal Shralpinism. Just the width of her skill set is really impressive.
Great answer. If you had to classify snowboarding, would you consider it art, sport, or lifestyle?
I think the beauty of it is it's all of those intermingled together.
Amazing. Who's one of the most underrated snowboarders in your opinion?
God, well, as we say, it'd definitely be Garrett Warner.
That's my answer in my head too. Worm is the sickest.
We describe him as your favorite snowboarder's favorite snowboarder.
Yep. Sure. We may or may not have booked him to come out of the show in the near future.
Well, he may or may not. He's a misty guy, man.
I had to catch him at the side of the highway in Alaska.
Yeah, dude. And
sleeping in the tent.
Yep. Okay. This is a great one. I'm really curious about your answer. Steel or powder?
Yeah, definitely on the like to snowboard on snow.
Okay.
That one hurt.
Yeah, I was really hoping he was going to throw us for a loop and be
he
like,
likes the steel edges.
Steel edges. Yeah, there you go. Favorite style on a snowboard ever? Who's got your favorite style?
God, I mean, I think I've been fortunate enough to see it up close and personal consistently in Danny Davis.
Good answer.
From his, struggling turned into one of the greatest turns to what he's doing in the air. God, what I could do with those skills.
Best tweaker of all time.
Yeah.
What's your favorite snowboard video ever made?
Favorite snowboard video ever made? Wow. That's a loaded question for sure. I've just had so many friends that have put in so much hard work and done so much incredible stuff. The early day stuff was so impactful. I'm going to go with TB5 as far as like where the level of snowboard filmmaking and snowboarding was at that moment in time. You kind of have this timeline, and then TB5 came and just put a vertical kink in that timeline.
Cool. What's your favorite snowboard graphic? What's your favorite graphic of all time?
Favorite snowboard graphic of all time. See, do you ask these questions all the time?
I do, and I should start briefing people that they're coming.
God, what? Noah. The skate Noah graphic I thought was incredibly creative. I'll go throw a shout out to Noah, who talk about
you got to spend some time with him too.
I got to spend time with Noah in his Big Mountain stuff and in Tahoe, and just see the thing with Noah is people maybe don't realize, one, absolutely could be thrown out in the greatest of all time conversation from his influence as far as moving the needle in core freestyle snowboarding and blatantly bringing it up a notch or two, and then doing the same in serious snowboarding. His descent on super spines is still another one of those examples where you have this progression going on in snowboarding, and then there's this vertical kink of where you just move the sport multiple years ahead in one descent. So happy to give a shout out to Noah. But the thing that people don't realize with Noah is he was like this really analytical engineer out there. Like whether it was the jump building or riding spines or free ride, he was like, that's going to get this light at 736 and we got to be there in that aspect. I mean, he was a mad scientist in the mountains.
Cool. Okay, if you could go heliboarding with 3 people, just good times, or whatever, just dream power run. You could even splitboard up there, but just dream power run for the ages. 3 people. Who are you taking?
Well, I perfectly made sure that I have a family of 4, so we all fit in the helicopter. And I just, my time in the mountains with my family those are just so special, and I cherish it so much. And now my kid, my daughter's in college now, so I'm like, God, thank God I cherish that, because it's a fleeting. The kids they spread their wings. And
okay, if you could have a dream sponsor, any brand in any facet of life, doesn't have to be snowboard related. What's your dream sponsor?
Dream sponsor. God, what would it be? I'm so fortunate I have very little lust in my life, meaning he chooses to be rich by making his wants few and supplying them himself. I don't have expensive taste. I think maybe a sailboat sponsor, I would take that. Yeah, so any sailboat companies out there, that's what I'd like.
Cool. Last question. Worst trend?
Binge watching, binge consumption of siloed thought.
Damn. I love that. Love that answer. Perfect. Okay. Lastly, we always ask our guests setups, like your daily driver. What board are you riding? Boots, bindings.
Yeah. So new board, new stance for me. I'm all over the map with stances. I think that it's good for your wear points as a snowboarder. If you have the exact same stance, you kind of like put the same abuse in the same spots. And so I'm picking product off of conditions. I'd say I'm a bit, the biggest trend for me these days is I've definitely brought a lot more camber into my life as of late.
Specific board?
My kind of go-to split board is the Jones Butterfly Split. That's the one that kind of came off of the Tweaker, which is our twin, that ended up into my go-to split board. And then, a solid board, when it comes to me, like, it's very simple. If I was, say, going to Europe for a month, I'm throwing in a flagship and I'm throwing in a solution. Those are just our like center. That's the board that I have been refining, going way back to Rosignol days. That's my like contest level, say, elite freeride board.
Okay, so Jeremy, what is next for BMJJ, aka Jeremy Jones?
What is next?
Deeper, further, higher.
Deeper, further, higher.
Longer.
Yeah, longer.
Well, I call it the wonderful problem. And that is you have this, say, mountain or this line that just overcomes your life because it's so beautiful, and you just want to ride this line. And I always want to ride these things in optimal conditions. And if you're lucky, all the stars align. You get to ride this incredible line, but in doing so, you stand on that peak and you look out and you see 10 more. So the hit list continues to grow, not get shorter. And so I am having so much fun on my snowboard these days. So definitely a lot more snowboarding in my future. I definitely don't have the pressure. I mean, when you're paying your bills off of video parts, which I did for a long time, there's definitely, as much as I would always try to leave that behind going into the mountains because it's dangerous. I'm now in this just like pure stoke, zero pressure snowboarding and enjoying everything from the backyard pow surfing to the, mundane low angle groomers to, being out splitboarding. So definitely more snowboarding in the future.
Fantastic. Lastly, before we wrap this thing up, do you want to throw any thank yous up?
I do. I would love to. I got to start with my wife. She's, last interesting story. I was the first snowboarder to get certified in Stowe, Vermont, which you used to have to get cleared by the mountain to ride it. And recently I was talking to my wife, and we think that she is the second snowboarder in Ohio, first female. And, but yeah, she's, we've been together over 30 years and she's been instrumental at Jones. Need a huge shout out to everyone at Jones. I'm so proud of what we're doing there. Same with the Protect Our Winners crew. Smart people want to, do important work, and there's no more important work than the climate change stuff. Shout out to all the camera operators over the years. I wouldn't be here without them. They are the unsung heroes. Their job is way harder than mine. Also the editors, sponsors for sure. I've been super fortunate to have great sponsors, POC, 32, Yeti, and I know I'm going to forget some, Revel Shine Wine. So shout out to them. And then I guess shout out to the snowboard community. The only reason I am in this chair is that you have shown up to watch my video parts. You've bought my book. You've, supported the snowboards, and it doesn't go missed. And I think when we're so much when we're around a table on what should we do as a company or content or whatever, I'm always thinking, what's the lift line want to see? What's the that everyday shredder want to see? How can we make their life better on the mountain? And so hopefully I've done that and given you some tools to have some of the best days in your life. And photogs, filmers, and all the riders that I've got to share the mountains with. It's definite teamwork out there, and I'll leave it at that. My brothers, obviously, they were massive, and so many informal and formal mentors along the way. And so, it's a group effort that gets you in this chair, and I'm honored to be here. And thanks for the opportunity. But before I go, I do want to give you guys a Shralpinism Society patch. There's only a couple of those out. So
wow,
there you go. And Chris, before I do need to interview you on the patch.
Okay, let's do this.
So splitboarding. Have you been on a splitboard?
Absolutely.
You splitboard out of your house, right?
Yeah, we got one at the cabin, but then up here I'm with the king of the Satch
He
over
loves
here.
splitboarding.
I go with him.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I just wanted to double check. So how many days are we thinking?
Oh, that's an embarrassment. It's like a year, like 6.
Okay, and changeover time?
Oh,
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I love that. I have had some. Dude, I've had people come.
I don't even notice I'm laughing because the banter's
I've had. That's the best question. I've had a couple people come up and be all, so what's your changeover time?
No way. Who is asking that?
All right. So actually, now I remember.
Hard booters are asking that.
It was when do you guys remember when the Quicker came back?
The clicker?
There was a clicker that was for splitboarding, and it was called the Quicker.
Huh.
True story. And it was at the OR show on Solitude, and I get on the lift with this guy and that worked for the company, and he looks over to me serious, and he's all, so what's your changeover time?
We could increase it by 100%.
Yeah. So, all right, Chris, well, you have done such a good community service, which is key for why we call it Shralpinism Society. That's you're adding value to the community. I thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
And you get a Shralpinism Society.
Deeper, further, higher. This is fantastic.
amazing.
And I want to apologize for all of the Shralpinists I've made fun of on this show about like eating granola and stuff. I take it all back. I'm one of you guys. I'm part of the gang now. So
You always have been.
And that is a true story on the granola. We do eat a lot of granola. It's good for you. It fuels you. Yeah, knock it all you want. It will get you up the mountain.
it's true. Yeah, it's true. Well, I want to say, Jeremy, thank you so much for everything you've done for snowboarding. It's been insane. This list, I want to apologize about my list. Okay, it's a bad list of video parts, but all the videos, Protect Our Winners, freaking 100 years of just dedicating yourself to the snowboard culture, books. It's endless, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. I also, last gift, I get
Oh
you
my
guys
gosh.
signed Art of Shralpinism.
Christmas morning. I might have to get you to sign the No Words for the Way Down as well.
Dude, that
I love that
that's
book.
out of print. Those are hard to get. So yeah.
That sits in my bookshelf
You know,
when you walk in.
I do have to ask too. Before I know we're kind of wrapping, but I was just thinking about how you were talking about how your wife is the first one to get certified. You're one of the first people to get certified. It's like you've essentially been here since roughly the advent of snowboarding, the invention of snowboarding, and now you've been on this crazy ride of riding Alaska and being a maniac, and then human powered and Protect Our Winners, and now you got kids that snowboard, and it's just been like generations now. You're almost have a second generation of snowboarders. Where do you feel like we're at as a snowboard community as a whole? What's your temperature check on that?
I think we're at a great space. I mean, we have, unfortunately, the climate stuff, I've never heard a scientist say the issue's not as bad as we thought it was. So there's, with that, it's extreme weather and what have you. You have to be nimble in those challenges. But from a sport perspective, I think we're in a really exciting place. Not only is there many different facets to snowboarding, which I think is super important to, that Olympic border cross or what have you, to, riding in the streets and everything in between. But we have a much needed increase in diversity of the sport, which to me has been this big blind spot. And with that diversity comes new ideas, new concepts, new vibes. And so in that sense, I think we constantly need the young generations to come up, have a chip on their shoulder, do it their way, take the baton and run with it, and stepping over the people in front of them. We need that gusto to keep us going into new places. And I think at the end of the day, especially as we get more erratic weather and what have you, if you find yourself on a chairlift, gliding on snow, just recognize that of the almost 8 billion people on the planet, regardless of conditions, you are winning, and be grateful for that opportunity.
Whew.
Wow.
And with that, we're going to take us out of this. Jeremy Jones, the BMJJ experience. This has been an experience.
It has been an experience.
Wow. And thank you for sharing the BMJJ experience with us. I learned so much. It was a pleasure. Again, thank you so much for everything you've done for snowboarding. Thank you, Griff, a.k.a. the King of the Satch, for helping host.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor to be here and listen to you.
And Silk D, thank you for the soothing audio Patreon questions.
No problem.
And thanks to our Patreon members. We couldn't do this without you supporting the show, all of our sponsors that support the show, and everybody that tunes in. We really appreciate you guys. And thanks so much. And Griff, why don't you do the sign off? Why don't you do the sign off for us from the bomb hole? You know,
Sign off?
Just take us out. Just take us off.
Thanks for coming in, friends, and we will see you next time right here on thebombhole.com.
Nice.
Is that WW dot?
Wow, I love that crescendo at the end there. Appreciating the